Good morning to you. You're watching the proceedings of the National Assembly that have just commenced live from Parliament buildings this Wednesday morning, this being the 25th day of September, the year being 2024. It is 9:28 a.m. and we are glad to bring you this live broadcast of the National Assembly this morning, courtesy of the existing partnership between the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation and the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit. In the highlights, in the order of business this morning, the policy on matters funding for sugarcane farming in the country is a motion number 24 of the year 2023 by Honorable Peter Nabulindo that is lined up for debate this morning. In this motion, the mover says that aware that commercial sugarcane production in Kenya was introduced early in the years of independence, and this was with the name of eliminating dependence on sugarcane importation and contributing to economic transformation in the sugar belt and the country at large through agriculture, and equally acknowledging that it has been a pinnacle that the sugar industry significantly has contributed to the country's national gross domestic product, popularly called GDP, and has become one of the largest employers, which supported livelihoods of many Kenyans, both directly and indirectly, and concerned that over the last 25 years, sugarcane farming, and this is particularly in the Western Kenya, has been declining significantly, thereby dipping sugar production from over 600 metric tons per year in the 1990s to less than 3,000 metric tons over the years. In the motion, the mover seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, reviews the sugar development policies to provide that every investor miller sets aside a definite fund for development of sugar farming, incentivizing farmers to embrace sugar growing and to enhance cane production in each of the respective zones. This is a motion that the House is set to resume debate on this morning with a balance of about an hour and a half. The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Boss, is already in the chambers this morning. Allow me to hand you over for this live broadcast. My name is Gladys Mungai. Have yourself a good morning and enjoy your viewing.
Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trust in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our charge. Amen. Sergeant at arms, you can ring the bell for 10 minutes.
The quorum bell is currently being rung, at the National Assembly this morning, pursuant to the directives by the Speaker this morning, in accordance with the House Standing Orders that guides the House at the commencement of business on March's quorum. And away from the motion that seeks to incentivize farmers on embracing sugarcane growing and enhancing cane production in the cane growing regions, we yet have another motion on comprehensive reforms on education bursary schemes to ensure free basic education in Kenya. This is a motion by Honorable Esther Passaris, the woman rep for Nairobi County. The motion by Honorable Passaris seeks to have the House urge that the government, through the Ministry of Education, and this is in collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, do undertake a comprehensive overhaul of the education bursary system. And this is with a view of collapsing all bursary schemes and allocating the funds to the State Department for Basic Education for the provision of free basic education through the capitation to be directly remitted to schools. Honorable John Carrier, through motion number 28 of the year 2023, and in the motion on matters establishment of a science museum, states in this motion that aware that Article 11, subsection 2 of the Constitution provides that the government shall recognize the role of science and indigenous technologies in the development of the nation, and further aware that Vision 2030 provides for the integration of information, communication, and technology in the country's transformative agenda, and concerned that there exists no science museum for matters consolidation of indigenous scientific and technological innovations, training and research purposes in the East African region, and appreciating that the integration of science and technology would greatly enhance Kenya's economic and societal success, and equally noting that there is potential for growth in March's technology sector by establishing a science museum, and further noting that the informal science education plays a key role in the progression of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, popularly known as STEM, and acknowledging that science museums operate as the nexus between science practitioners, policymakers, and the public, and cognizant of the fact that a science museum in the country would greatly impact on matters economy of the country in the quest to become an industrialized nation, the House resolves that the national government, through the relevant ministries, establishes and operationalizes a science museum in the country. So after consideration of the three motions, the House will then move into a consideration of a number of bills that are currently at the second stage. Among them is the Kenya Information and Communications Amendment Bill. This is National Assembly Bills number 52 of the year 2023 by Member for GEM, Honorable Elisha Odhiambo. The Community Health Workers Bill, National Assembly Bills number 53 of the year 2023. The Higher Education Loans Amendment Bill. This is the HELB Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bills number 58 of the year 2022 by Honorable Joyce Kamane. This morning, we equally anticipate debate on a motion on the national sensitization and support for combating sickle cell and hemophilia diseases in the country. This is a motion by Honorable Peter Nabulindo. And this motion that is technically pegged on Article 43, subsection 1 on the Constitution on entitlement of every person to rights to attain highest standards of health. Honorable Nabulindo seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Health and in conjunction with the county governments, conduct, as well as matters to do with conducting awareness and sensitization of programs on sickle cell and hemophilia diseases, as well as supports research and training for medical personnel on the two diseases. And two, that the national government, in conjunction with the Ministry of Health and the county governments, do put in place measures for mandatory screening of newborn babies of sickle cell and hemophilia diseases in all public health facilities in the country in order to create a database to guide funding and other interventions aimed at curbing diseases and reducing infant mortalities resulting from the diseases. The promotion and supporting of local fertilizer manufacturing industries is a motion this morning by Honorable Member Samuel Atandi. This being motion number 33 of the year 2023, seeks to have the National Assembly resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture, supports and promotes local fertilizer manufacturing industries by investing in research and development to bolster the domestic fertilizer manufacturing sector. Government to government, popularly known as G2G, a model of acquiring and supplying of fertilizer to farmers at subsidized cost, is a motion that will be following on the supporting of manufacturing industries on matters fertilizer by Honorable Samatandi. The motion on the government to government model to acquire and supply fertilizers to farmers at subsidized cost is a motion fronted by the member from Bere North, Honorable Jeffrey Ruku. And in this motion, the mover seeks to have the House resolve that the government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development and its agencies, adopt the government-to-government model in the acquisition and supply of fertilizers by identifying potential partners that have surplus and quality fertilizer, and two, do a comprehensive program for government-to-government acquisition and distribution of fertilizers through, among others, the Kenya Farmers Association, the Kenya Tea Development Agency, KTDA, the Coffee Board of Kenya, the Kenya Planters Cooperative Union, KPCU, the Kenya Grain Growers Cooperative Union, as well as the Pyrethrum Board of Kenya for increased agricultural productivity. Member for Aldai, Honorable Marian Keitani, through motion number 38 of the year 2023 on development of measures to mitigate the digital exclusion, says in this motion that aware that the government of Kenya has prioritized digitization and automation of government processes and services as part of Kenya's digital master plan for the year 2022-2030. The blueprint for leveraging and deepening matters contribution to information and communications technology to accelerate the country's economic growth, and further aware that the government is committed to consolidating the industrial, academic institutions and other innovators to co-invest in emergence of technologies to create high-quality jobs that leverage on artificial intelligence, robotics, and other technologies, and cognizant of the fact that the government intends to increase matters internet broadband. This is internet broadband connectivity across the country, and this is through the construction of 100,000 kilometers of national fiber optics connectivity network. The National Assembly resolved that the government, through the Ministry of ICT and Digital Economy, formulates a policy to regulate the internet billing by internet service providers by providing for a metered billing of internet use based on consumption in order to mitigate exploitation and secure economic interests of internet users in line with Article 46 of the Constitution, and require that internet service providers do develop and deploy quality metered billing system capable of monitoring customer usage, convert to readable details, and creating invoices based on the consumption, as well as aligning to the metrics with the value to the customers to get the various internet services. The establishment of a national policy to combat disrespectful childbirth practices is a motion lined up for debate this morning. This motion is by the member for Githunguri, Honorable Gathoni Wamushomba, and this motion has been pegged on Article 43, subsection 1A of the Constitution, on again rights to every Kenyan to access highest attainable standards of health. The motion by Wamushomba seeks to have the House resolve that the national government, through the Ministry of Health, develop a policy on matters prevention of obstetric violence in healthcare facilities in the country, and provides a framework for regular monitoring and reporting of cases to curb incidences of pre and post mistreatment of women seeking health services in the country. Honorable Miriam Keitani, through motion number 39 of the year 2023, and through the motion pertaining the formulation of a regulatory framework on matters artificial intelligence in the country, is seeking to have the National Assembly urge the government, through the Ministry of Information, Communication and Digital Economy, to formulate a regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for implementation of artificial intelligence, popularly known as AI, in the country, to control its potential misuse, and develop as well as execute a public awareness program on artificial intelligence and raise understanding on matters AI to foster transparency and promote responsible use of AI for the benefit of all in the country. The formulation of land use policy on matters zoning of land for the agriculture and built development is another motion this morning that is set for debate by Honorable Tim Wanyonyi. This is motion number 44 of the year 2023. Also, lined up for debate this morning is the expansion of major roads in the country for dual carriageways, this being a motion by Honorable Faith Gitau. The House is also set to debate the introduction of mandatory community service to all learners upon the completion of secondary school. This is a motion number 5 of the year 2024 by Honorable Member for Starehe, Honorable Amos Mwago. Our dear viewers, from all indications, the sergeant terms have notified their counterparts in the chamber that the quorum has been attained. Allow me to hand over to this live broadcast back.
All right, honorable members, we may proceed. First order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
Yes, the Deputy Majority Leader.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Wednesday, September 24th, 2024, this morning sitting. 1. Report of the Auditor General financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2022 and certificates therein in respect of the Kenya Post Office Savings Bank. 2. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements for the year ended 31st December 2023 and certificates therein in respect of the following institutions: Kenya Post Savings Bank. B. Office of the Controller of Budget Staff Retirement Benefits Scheme, and C. Kenya Institute of Supplies Management, KISM. 3. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements of the National Government Constituency Development Fund, NGCDF, for the year ended 30th June 2023 and certificates therein in respect of the following constituencies: Bomet, Githunguri, and Vihiga. 4. Reports of the Auditor General and financial statements for the year ended 30th June 2023 and certificates therein in respect of the following institutions: Maendeleo Democratic Party, United Democratic Movement, and Shirikisho Party of Kenya. I thank you, Honorable Speaker, and I beg to lay.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
The Honorable Member for Lukuyani. You have a question? Honorable Innocent Mugabe.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 42G, I rise to ask question number 128 of 2024 to the Teacher Service Commission for reply before the Departmental Committee on Education regarding the issues surrounding the recruitment, distribution, and deployment of teachers in Kenya. Honorable Speaker, while some counties face acute shortage of teachers, others are experiencing a surplus of teachers, resulting to an equal distribution that negatively impacts the educational outcome of students in various regions. This imbalance not only exacerbates regional disparities, but also hampers the realization of the right to education as enshrined in Article 42(1)(f) of the Constitution. Moreover, as we approach January 2025, uncertainty hangs on the transition of grade 8 students to grade 9 under the competency-based curriculum, notably on the issue of whether the current senior secondary school teachers or junior secondary school teachers will be responsible for teaching the said
Honorable Member for
transition students.
Lukuyani,
Yes.
you need to read the question just as is in the order paper.
Okay. Now,
You can just begin from the beginning.
thank you for the guidance. So could the Commission, 1, provide a detailed report on the distribution of teachers per county, including a breakdown of the number of teachers, identify deficits, surpluses, and any action taken to address these discrepancies, including the number of teachers recruited from 2021 to 2024 and criteria used in their deployment. 2, clarify whether there is a plan for addressing concerns relating to the teaching of grade 9 students under the competency-based curriculum, CBC, including roles and responsibilities of senior secondary school teachers versus junior secondary school teachers. 3, outline the strategies being implemented by the Commission in collaboration with the Ministry of Education to ensure the balanced distribution of teachers across counties, particularly in marginalized regions, and the measures in place to address any imbalance, including any timelines for implementations. 4, provide the status of confirming intern teachers, including details on the number of intern teachers the government plans to confirm, the criteria that will be applied, and the timeline for their confirmation, and integration into the teaching service. I submit. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
This question will be replied to by the Departmental Committee on Education. I don't know if the chairperson is here. Yes, proceed.
Madam Speaker, we have invited the CEO, the TSC, tomorrow to our committee meeting. What is raising actually is part of what she's coming to respond to. So I'm asking the member to avail himself tomorrow so that he can have the feedback from her tomorrow at 10 o'clock. What time, where? 10 o'clock. Where? Thank you very much.
I think Honorable Mugabe, you can just find out later from them the location, because sometimes the clerks haven't told them by now, but you know it's 10 o'clock. All right, thank you. Okay, next we have the Honorable Ariko Namoit, member for Turkana South.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I rise to request for a statement regarding administration of the Equalization Fund for projects in Turkana South Sub-County. Madam Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2c, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning regarding the administration of Equalization Fund for the projects in Turkana South Sub-County. Madam Speaker, the Equalization Fund was established under Article 204(1) of the Constitution of Kenya and operationalized by the Public Finance Management Equalization Fund Administration, Regulation 2021. The fund seeks to bring the quality of basic services, such as water, roads, health facilities, and electricity in marginalized areas to the extent necessary to be at par with the level generally enjoyed by the rest of the country. Projects under the fund are approved by the County Technical Committee upon identification and prioritization by the Sub-County Technical Committee. Madam Speaker, Turkana County is among the counties identified by the Commission on Revenue Allocation as a marginalized region, hence eligible to benefit from the Equalization Fund. However, effective implementation of the fund in Turkana South Sub-County has been facing several challenges, including sluggish progress in infrastructure development, lack of collaboration between county and sub-county technical committee in prioritization and approval of projects, funding proposals, and lack of transparency to the public on projects funded by Equalization Fund and those funded by the county government of Turkana. Madam Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the following. 1, a report on the projects implemented under Equalization Fund in Turkana South Sub-County since in the inception of the fund, including assessment of the impact of the fund on achieving the objective envisaged in Article 204(1) of the Constitution. 2, clarification on whether Napusmoru and Kaibachal water projects in Turkana South Sub-County were funded under Equalization Fund or by county government of Turkana. 3, the measures put in place to distinguish between projects implemented under Equalization Fund from those funded by county governments in order to enhance transparency and accountability. And finally, Madam Chair, a report on the circumstances and reasons why the County Technical Committee varied the project's proposal for Turkana South Sub-County without consulting or notifying the Sub-County Technical Committee, and measures put in place by the Equalization Fund Advisory Board to guard against such unilateral actions. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Okay, that will be tabled before the Finance and National Planning Committee. Is there anybody from the Finance and Planning Committee? Oh, you're also from the Finance. Okay. Okay, they shall be also notified both by the member from their committee and the leader, the deputy leader of majority. And now, this is not on the order paper, but has just been approved by the substantive speaker. A statement by the Honorable Member for Konoin, Honorable Brighton Yegon. You may proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'm requesting for a statement regarding the discrepancies in tea farmers' bonuses in some parts of Rift Valley, or call it west of Rift. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Agriculture and Livestock regarding the discrepancy in tea farmers' annual bonuses in some parts of Rift Valley, call it west of Rift. Honorable Speaker, it has been in public domain that there exists a stark difference in the amount of bonuses paid to farmers in the region situated in the west of Rift Valley, namely Bomet.
Honorable Brighton and Honorable Member from Kisii. And Speaker, the way we treat farmers in this country leaves so much to be desired. The only people who now earn a honest living, because we know where they get their money, are farmers. The only people who we still know are honest in what they do is the people who go out every day in the morning in the farms with the hope that those farms will bring something to their pockets, their children will go to school, they'll probably have a shelter over their bodies, over their heads, they'll have clothes on their bodies, they can have a life that they desire. Madam Speaker, if you look at the way we treat tea farmers, coffee farmers, sugarcane farmers, farmers generally in this country, Madam Speaker, it's so shabby. And I hope that as the committee looks at this question, we can relook at the reforms we proposed, especially in the tea and coffee sectors, to ensure that the farmers get the best. If you know, for example, Madam Speaker, what happens with the coffee and the tea we produce, how much is finally earned by the brokers, how much is finally earned by the guys who export it, and you see how much the farmers in Kenya get, you cry. And we hope that the committee led by the Honorable, my friend Dr. Mutunga, can get to the bottom of this matter. It's only in this country where the banks every year declare astronomical profits, but the employees still earn peanuts. In the tea sector, the kind of monies that are earned by the executives are too high, but the real farmers get so little. I hope your committee could help this country get to the bottom of this matter so that people don't. You remember in this period, Madam Speaker, maybe just mention it, that a young boy lost his life in this last week because of farmers are demonstrating for their rights. I wish we would not have a situation where farmers demonstrate for Kenyans to notice that they are doing a good job and they deserve a good payment. Thank you.
Member for Kitutu Masaba, Honorable Clive Kisiaro.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I would like to thank the two members who brought this issue up. Madam Speaker, I come from Nyamira County, where almost 70% of the population rely on tea farming as our own and main cash crop. Madam Speaker, it is somehow comical that the farmers who wake up early in the morning work for nothing, while a few people who sit in offices, be it in Nairobi, around the factories, and the auction points in Mombasa, are the ones who rake millions of shillings. Madam Speaker, tea is auctioned using the dollar denomination. The farmer is never, ever informed about the forex. All we see year in, year out is the bonus rate coming down or stagnating. The farmer will still get the same amount from the time the dollar was exchanging at 90 shillings. Today, the dollar gyrates between 120 and 130. but the farmer will still get 20 to 30 shillings per kilo. We can't have a system that is there to ensure the poor remains poor. And the rich, who do the least, rake millions. It is painful. And as this House, we need to come up with ways to ensure that we protect the farmer, that the tea benefits the poorest person, to ensure they are able to take their kids to school, to ensure they are able to feed their children. We have a responsibility. We cannot sit and wish that the farmers have a better day tomorrow without us doing something. And let this be a wake-up call to KTDA. We are watching, and we will not sit and watch and do nothing while you make our people, the people who are the backbone of this nation, continue to die in poverty. Yet they work, they toil every single day, hoping for a better future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Nairobi County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you look at how this country started from independence with cooperatives and institutions to manage our agriculture, coordinate, export, and give value. I mean, in the past, people used to send their children to school without any problems because they made so much money. The gold of our country was agriculture, coffee, tea. Kenya is the third largest producer of tea after China and India. Though we only have the variety of black tea, I think we need to really improve the variety of teas based on the demands in the world. But the biggest problem we're having is if you've received the tea and you have sold the tea, it shouldn't take this long for you to actually give the money to the farmers. And I think this lack of transparency in terms of how much money they've received, the efficiency of remitting the money to the farmers, how much money are they retaining for themselves as the institution that's actually like the trading house? I feel that as long as we don't make it beneficial for farmers to actually make money, what is going to happen to the tea industry is what we saw happening in the coffee industry. In the end, people were uprooting their coffee trees because they found there was no value. And this is an actual export earner for the country, export earner for the country. So what we need to do is the Ministry of Agriculture to really come clean. I'm sure the Office of the Auditor General has already made reports on certain issues that are arising in these various institutions that manage our agriculture. And if these reports are not taken seriously and acted on, then we have a problem. I think we have a vicious circle of wrongs, and we need to try and turn that if we're going to turn the wheels of our country and our economy to be actually prosperous. So the Ministry of Agriculture should actually take note that this is a big concern, because this is an income earner for the country. This is also an industry that is supporting a lot of our people. And right now, the last thing we need is to lose any gain that we've made that is positive. We need to actually work on the negatives, and there are far too many. So the agriculture industry needs to be watched properly, and I pray that we will see some action within the next few days. And we cannot pay the farmers less. We cannot charge the farmers more and then expect them to actually be able to continue making that investment. We have a tendency to respect foreign investors and actually fail to respect our local investors. That tea farmer, even if he has 10 bushels, he is somebody that is worthy of respect, because once he sells it, right, to the trading house, that trading house brings in dollars for this country, which help us to be able to pay our debts. So we need to be able to actually pay our farmers on time, pay them their rightful dues. And I really want to thank our honorable member for bringing up this question, because it is important for us to address it. Thank you.
Thank you. The member for Uasin Gishu County.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for the opportunity to speak about this topic that I'm extremely passionate about. I think as members of parliament, we must first start to stop lamenting and act. Because the only place where the action can happen is here in parliament. We can pass the necessary laws and regulations to ensure that our farmers are protected. And it's not just the coffee and tea farmers. It is farming across the sector. If you look at our history from the time of independence, the whole entire farming industry has been on a decline consistently. There is no time that it's been on an up climb. And you ask yourselves as Kenyans that you see tea in Europe that's called English tea, yet there isn't a single plantation of tea in Europe or England. That English tea is Kenyan tea. You go around the whole of America and Europe too, you find Starbucks selling coffee, yet they don't have a single plantation of coffee. There is something wrong with us as a country. The education that has been invested by government hasn't helped us because we should have changed that trajectory at that time. We must, and I'm asking the agriculture chairperson, you must spearhead this if you truly want to be worth that seat that you are given by Kenyans. That you must engage with the ministry and stakeholders and find ways of turning this around so that any tea that's being sold abroad is called Kenyan tea and not English tea, because the plantations are ours. We also, because we have continued to behave like we are being colonized. Yes, during colonial times, that was okay, because during colonial times, they were growing the tea here and taking it to their country and calling it English tea because we are a British protectorate. But we are not a British protectorate or colony anymore. So we must start first by even changing the name of the tea. If you look at what the food production that we used to have, we used to produce sufficient rice, we used to produce sufficient palm oil, sufficient coconut oil, sufficient wheat, sufficient sugar, sufficient maize. But today, we are net importers of all those crops that we are capable of growing. So I think we must interrogate ourselves and we must fault ourselves as members of parliament. It is not the job of the farmer to resolve that issue. It is our job. We must tell ourselves, the counties, agriculture is devolved. How much are the counties putting in ensuring that they maximize rice production so that our supermarkets are not filled by imported rice? Our supermarkets are not filled with imported meat, imported edible oil, imported palm oil, and things that we are capable of producing. Even imported nuts that we are capable of producing, yet we have the land and the labor. So unless we act as parliament, Kenya will always remain poor. And Kenya will always be a net importer of food that they can produce. And remember, those countries don't have the labor force that we have. So it's about time that we start to look inward instead of speaking like somebody else will resolve it. When I hear about a simple problem, like the tea is taken to a selling point, and the person who determines the quality of the tea is a third party, how difficult is it for the counties to make sure that they have an independent body, not the broker and the purchaser of the tea, to just be able to measure the quality? That doesn't take a lot of equipment and doesn't cost a lot. It is a failure of ourselves, of the leaders of this country. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I thank you.
The member for Bursary.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand to second the motion as brought about, the petition as brought about by the petitioner regarding tea growing and particularly the disparity in the tea bonuses in the various regions. I speak as a grower of tea, actually, in a small-scale way. And I have witnessed, I can tell you, that the amount of money you spend into the tea in experience and the amount you get, you actually end up earning less than what you have spent in growing the tea. And therefore, this petition must not only call for a simple comment, but an interrogation on how is it that, tea is being grown and we give it out to people to market, and then the amount coming back is so differs from one area to another, and the market we are selling, the marketing system is the same. So something must be terribly wrong. And we call upon also the regulatory system of the government to ensure that the farmer is protected by getting his due share. But on another comment, there are, and it's heading there are many products we used to produce as a country which are no longer being done. If the tea also continues like this, because I've seen it as I grow, the number of people growing tea is going to reduce because they are not getting any benefit, and we are going to lose that industry as another. So we must protect the tea, we must protect the farmer so that we benefit from it, we use it the farmer uses it to pay school fees for his children, and as a country, it helps us to get income. It's important to take it at parliament level and at regulatory level. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly on this would be the member for South Imenti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute on this important agenda. Mr. Speaker, agriculture sector is very, very important in this country. And the economy of this country is driven by agriculture. Mr. Speaker, having been a director of Imenti factory, I wish to contribute and state that tea currently is the main cash crop of this country. And we find that farmers are not benefiting considering to the river they exhibit in their farming. Mr. Speaker, we find that there are so many middlemen in the sector. And we find that at the end of the day, farmers are not getting enough revenue or returns. Mr. Speaker, when we consider the inputs, especially that the farmers use like fertilizers, the labor in harvesting does not tally to the returns that they get, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it's our responsibility to see that farmers are well paid, especially by adding value addition in the tea in our factories. So, Mr. Speaker, the payments vary differently for various factories, but they are, or the tea is sold in the same market. So, Mr. Speaker, I wish to contribute and concur with my fellow honorable members that the intermediaries that are in between the farmers and the market should be reduced. Payment should also be done at the right time when the farmers expect the payments. Mr. Speaker, it's our responsibility to see that the farmers benefit. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. All members, before we move to the next order, join me in welcoming students from Masinde Muliro University, Kakamega County, Brook Hill Academy from Wakasi East, Nairobi County, and students from Githuguchu Primary School, Ndaragwa, in Nyandarua County. They are seated at the public gallery, and they are welcome to follow proceedings this morning at Parliament. Next order.
Order number 8, motion number 24 of 2023, policy and funding for sugarcane farming in the country. Resumption of debate.
All members, debate on this motion had started with the motion being moved and seconded and a number of members contributing. At the time of closing last time, the member on the floor on this motion was Honorable Ruth Odinga, Kisumu County. She's in the House. It's not. So, yeah, would I see by interventions members who want to contribute to this motion? The motion is on the policy and funding of the sugarcane farming in the country. Members want to contribute to this? Please press the intervention button. Let me start with the member for Nairobi County.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion on policy and funding for sugarcane farming in the country, brought by Honorable Peter Nabulindo. Mr. Speaker, I mean, we looked at the tea industry, and as our Deputy Speaker rightly said, it's agriculture as a whole. Here we come up with a motion on sugarcane farming. It is such a shame that we have let this industry be riddled with corruption, and the big names that were actually responsible for bringing down institutions like Mumia still walk free. And, you know, we continue trying to bail it out, one in and out, and we're not getting anywhere. And then the people that trade on sugar, the people that want to import sugar, majority of whom are probably in government as well, are continuously dumping sugar from other countries. What we have to remember is when we import any product that we can produce and have been producing 600,000 metric tons, and we drop it down to 300,000, and then we say there's a sugar shortage, and then we issue permits, and then sugar is brought in, and then we are consuming sugar that is imported. This is actually so morally wrong, because we have farmers, we have land, we have factories, but we are actually mismanaging our own and then going and out and becoming traders. And then what we do when we become traders in any industry that where we can actually be able to produce, right? When we become traders, we are actually creating jobs in the countries that we are importing from. And it is so shameful that we can do that. All those people that are waiting for a sugar shortage to be declared so that we can get licenses to import sugar are actually killing the jobs. They're the reason why we move from 600,000 metric tons to 300,000 metric tons. We need to get it up there again. We need to go to 1 million tons. We need to have vision. We need to have ambition. We need to be able to actually protect our own. When we create jobs in Kenya, we employ our own citizens. Sugar in Kenya, I mean, I have had sugar in other countries. The sugar in Kenya tastes better than any other country. Its sweetness is right up there. We have a lot that we can do. Even we can produce our own ethanol. But the question is, we don't have the will to do right by Kenya. And I really hope that we can do right by the sugar industry, because we have made it ill for so many, many years. And I think it starts with actually dealing with the corruption that brought down the sugar industry. Because if we don't deal with the corruption that brought down the sugar industry, then we're not going to be able to actually forge ahead. Because our history determines our future. And when we let people get away with doing wrong, then again, we're going to end up doing wrong even today. So while we put all the policies, all the structures, all the legislation, all the budgets, and we keep bailing out industries that people have stolen from, and they're walking scot-free and hoping to one day come back and lead this country, I really think we are losing the plot. And the plot is founded in our national anthem, where our national, the freedom fighters of this country, what did they want? They wanted prosperity. They wanted peace in our land. We will not have peace when our land and our sugarcane growers are not able to profit from their hard work. So we need to start thinking, how are we going to produce that sugar? Let's not be so quick to give licenses to import sugar for the shortfall. Let us give incentives to make sure that our industry, our sugar industry grows. Let us put the right structures in place. Because if we don't, One industry has to win. Unfortunately, it's almost like we have a collapse in every sector of the economy. And this collapse has been gradual and it's growing. And I really pray that, with the vision that I believe that the president has for this country, and with the broad-based government, we will prove that we can actually change the direction that we're going. Because the direction that we've been going has been backward. Can we change that direction and go forward? Instead of going down, can we go up? As a country, we owe it to the citizens as leaders, and this is everywhere. This is not just Parliament, this is also the executive. The executive has to do it, Parliament has to oversight, budgets have to be provided, the citizens have to pay their taxes, the judiciary has to allow us to work. We've become a country that is continuously stopped from moving forward because of litigation. We need to somehow come together and decide what is good for Kenya. And what is good for Kenya is good for the citizens. And I believe that, sometimes we're pitted against each other and we lose the plot. The duty that we have as citizens and as leaders in all three arms of government is to steer Kenya in the right direction, because the citizens want that. The citizens need that. The citizens are begging us to do that. So sugar industry is just one industry, but every sector of this country requires us to shift from doing things the old way to a new way, to doing things the devil's way to doing it the godly way. We're building churches, mosques, temples, but we've morally lost the plot. We are nowhere. I think if heaven were going to take a census, very few Kenyans would be there. So we need to start doing things right. And I really thank the member for bringing this, and I hope that the Ministry of Agriculture will do the right thing by the industry of sugar. No more importation. Let's get our metric tons up. Let's boost our industries. Let's get our factories working. And if we can't do it ourselves, let's bring in the public-private partnerships that can steer the industry in the right direction. Because you know what? Sometimes if we can't do it, let's get out of the kitchen and bring in the chef that can actually cook the dish that all Kenyans would want to enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Mvuriri.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute to this motion brought by Honorable Nabulindo. Mr. Speaker, sugar remains one of the goods in this country whose supply is lower than the demand. Basic economics tells you where the supply is lower than the demand, the pricing must be right. Yet, we still have our farmers choking because of importation of sugar. Before we even introduce new policies, Mr. Speaker, I think it's a matter of goodwill. It's not for lack of policy, but it is purely goodwill. Ask yourself, when sugarcane is actually being produced, I come from a sugarcane growing area, there is generation of electricity. That electricity in most factories is more than enough for their own factory that they can be able to supply to the grid at a much cheaper price. Then you find one of the policies is like a case that happened in Mumias. They were producing power. They were forced to sell all that power at a cheaper rate to KPLC and buy it at a much higher rate. So they are producing their own power. They are not allowed by law to utilize it. They are supposed to send it to the grid and buy it at a higher rate. It simply does not make sense. Every single year, we create an artificial shortage. We license a few people. We give them the opportunity to go and import. When they bring it here, the pricing is not right. So I actually want to support this bill, this motion, that the government, if they are keen on improving the livelihoods, especially from Kenyans who are living in sugarcane growing areas, that we must begin to invest, including in the maintenance of the factories that we have. Most of the factories that are producing below capacity is because the machinery that we have are as old as this nation. For example, in Sony Sugar, I think that machine was bought way before independence. They are still struggling with it. So you find it is operating at about 50% or less. There are issues of regulations. Every other time we try to bring in proper regulations here, they are frustrated by the same government. and it's the same cartels that are actually going around. So I want to applaud my colleague who has brought on this motion, that indeed it is about time that we make this country more independent and every single region be looked at for its uniqueness, for sugarcane growing areas, the investment that they require, amongst many other things. If we invest in sugarcane, for example, in my area, I have seen the sugar factories. They fix our roads, they fix the infrastructure. So it means if we allow them to produce to capacity and stop the importation, they get the right pricing. It will even reduce the amount of money that the government still invests through Ministry of Roads to improve the infrastructure, building bridges and things like that. Some of us are who we are today because of sugarcane growing. I personally went to school because of sugarcane. In fact, that time, as long as you had the cane on your farm, you would simply walk to the factory and they'd give you authority to go and pick money from the bank and have the sugarcane in the farm as a guarantee to ensure that you are educated. Some of us would not be here today. So I think I want to support this, that indeed it is about the time the House completely resolves that the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock put money where it actually should be. I beg to support. Thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Wanyonyi, you want to contribute to this? Honorable Tim Wanyonyi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the sugar industry in this country has actually brought people to abject poverty. Factories, Mr. Speaker, they ceased to pay farmers many years ago, and they have sugarcane on the farms rotting away, or sugarcane delivered at the factories and they are never paid. We have a big problem, Mr. Speaker, especially in the Western and Nyanza region. Nzoia Sugar Factory, Mumia Sugar Factory, these factories were functioning, Mr. Speaker, and those days when they were paying farmers and people were thriving, you could see even the markets and everywhere was doing very well. But there came a group of conmen, Mr. Speaker, the middlemen. They are the ones now who interfered with the sugar industry. They started negotiating things that did not exist and made sure that the factories were paying them and not the farmers. So, Mr. Speaker, we believe that the other thing is that the government and political interference also, Mr. Speaker, dealt a big blow to these factories because over and over they will, Mr. Speaker, fire competent managers and hire political managers who come in who have no idea how to manage the factory and going forward. I remember there was a man who was functioning in Zoya, Mr. Speaker. When he was there for a short period, factory started paying farmers on time, and the factory now was they were milling and then selling sugar, and then the political interference came about because people wanted to recruit a local person who had no idea to manage the factory, Mr. Speaker, and that brought a lot of problems. And up to now, I don't think these factories will ever be revived. There's no. Even the government keep on pumping money there. It's just a waste of time. We better find a solution, a lasting solution to these factories, either, and we passed a bill here, Mr. Speaker, to privatize and hand over these factories to strategic partners who can bring in money and revive the factories. The way West Kenya is functioning, the way Butali is functioning, these two factories, Mr. Speaker, have no sugarcane farms, but they are milling and they are getting sugarcane from all over the place, and they get and pay the farmers directly. And that is, Mr. Speaker, that is where we find that this thing going on in the Mumias, Shuka, Nzoia, and others, Sony, we have found the factories suffering because of this, Mr. Speaker. And for us, moving forward, I think the government should just get out of the sugar industry and sell all the shares to a private, to a strategic partner who can now come with the money, invest, and improve the factories, and then, Mr. Speaker, revive them and they'll start working. There are people who are ready and willing, but sometimes the negotiation takes long and take a wrong turn because there are people demanding for kickbacks before even putting pen to paper. So this is something that also, Mr. Speaker, has brought a lot of problems. And this is, we have not had these problems in the coffee, tea sector, because there, Mr. Speaker, they are very, very well managed. And you find that farmers are directly involved in the management of the factories, but you find the sugar, Mr. Speaker, the political appointees and all those people who come without any knowledge of how to manage a factory, they run them down, and this is something that we need to look at, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much for giving me a chance also to contribute on this.
Thank you. The Honorable Zamzam.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika, na mimi niweze kuongezea katika mjadala huu wa leo. Wakulima wengi wamekosa ile ari ya kuweza kurudi mashambani kulima, Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndio maana tunasema wapewe nafasi katika kuweza kupeleka mambo ya factory ya miwa ili waweze kuangalia haki yao, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, wakipewa mwanya huu wataweza kukaa pamoja na wale wahusika, wakaweza kujua haki zao za kimsingi, haki zao za ukulima, haki zao za miwa, na upanzi wa miwa unaangaliwa vizuri, na mazao yakitoka pia wanapata faida nzuri, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia makampuni mengi ya sukari yamefungwa kwa sababu wenyewe kwanza walikuwa hawana mwongozo mzuri katika zile factory zao, na kulikuwa na utepetevu mkubwa sana, na wengi walikuwa wakinyanyasa wakulima. Ndio maana unaona wakulima walirudi nyuma, Mheshimiwa Spika, wakaweza kuacha kupanda miwa, Mheshimiwa Spika, na ndio maana factory nyingi ukapata zimefunga. Lakini mimi nataka kusema hivi, mkulima yoyote, si wa miwa tu, hata Mombasa, Mheshimiwa Spika, sisi tuna wale ambao wanapanda korosho, na tungeomba serikali vile inavyosukuma sehemu zingine katika ukulima, tunawaunga mkono, lakini tunasema pia wasiangalie sehemu moja tu. Mimi kama Mama Zamzam na support wakulima wa sukari, na ningeomba pia mkulima wangu wa korosho, mkulima wangu wa nazi, naye pia aweze kuangaliwa, kwa sababu zote zinaleta rasilimali katika Kenya. Na ukiangalia ukulima kama wa nazi, Mheshimiwa Spika, nazi zatolewa nje kutoka India, kutoka China, sisi tuzitumia wakati kuna ukulima ndani ya taifa letu. Ni kwa sababu hawaangaliwa, hawashughulikiwi, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka niseme, ndugu yangu na Burindo, asante kuleta mjadala huu wa kuweza kutetea ukulima wa sukari, na tujue pia hawa wenye factory wanatengeza pesa nzuri sana, waweze kutoa mafunzo kwa hawa wakulima, waweze kuwasaidia, waweze kushirikiana na wao kwa ukaribu. Ndio mkulima ataelewa kuwa mazao yangu nikitoa, nikipeleka, kweli hakika kile ninachostahili kupata ni hiki, na kitanipa moyo kuweza kuzidi kupanda miwa na kuweza kulima miwa, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo mimi namuunga mkono ndugu yangu, na nasema wakulima wote Kenya, na nimeona kuna mswada ambao utakuja hapa, Mheshimiwa Spika, sikupenda kujadili saizi, lakini ningependa kusema hivi: Kenya iko katika hali ngumu sana, Mheshimiwa Spika, na sisi tunaangalia sehemu ambazo zinazalisha, tunataka kuzalisha. Kwa hiyo masuala ya kuweza kumfinya yule mkulima, sijui leseni ya hii, mtu yuko kule chini anapambana na mbolea, anapambana na mambo mengi, waachie wakulima waweze kupanda bila kudaiwa maleseni na nini, tuweze kuzalisha. Uchumi ukishashika vizuri, Mheshimiwa Spika, sasa tuweza kuzungumza masuala ya kugusa huku na huku. Lakini kwa sasa wakulima wako chini, wanastahili kupewa boost na serikali, serikali wanastahili kuangaliwa masala yao, kwa sababu hao ndo wanalisha taifa hili. Mheshimiwa Spika, tutaweza kuzuia zile sukari zinatoka sijui Brazil, zingine zilikuja na sumu, zingine sijui zilikuja na nini ndani. Tutaweza kuzuia ikiwa tutampatia huyu mkulima nguvu ya kuweza kulima na aone mazao yake na apate kufaidi kwa mazao yake, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo mimi naunga mjadala huu. Asante sana.
Order.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise under standing order number 5. Honorable Speaker, having heard the mood of the House and the overwhelming support that this motion has received, and the very pertinent issues raised by the motion, Honorable Speaker, and that we all agree, Honorable Speaker, I want to ask that under standing order number 5, that the mover be called upon to reply, Honorable Speaker.
Is that the mood of the House? The Honorable Nabulindo has a chance to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me take this opportunity to thank all the honorable members who have diligently contributed to this motion with a lot of passion and a lot of insights to whatever was on the floor of the House. Mr. Speaker, the House has had a lot of facts and issues arising from the sugarcane industry, generally the sugarcane farming, growing, processing, and sale of sugar in Kenya. I would like to thank the following members who diligently contributed to this motion. Shortly, Honorable Undo, Kaluma, Dawood, Keinan, Okello, Kihara, Omondi, and all the others who contributed in today's motion. Mr. Speaker, I will not go into much details because members have really talked well. They have come up very strongly in support of the issues that actually this motion seeks to achieve. And one of the speakers today, honorable member for Nairobi, Mheshimiwa Pasaris, said that the problem, and I totally agree with her, the problem we have in this country with the sugar industry is cartels. Mr. Speaker, for a very long time, since the early 90s up to today, cartels have been ruling the sugar industry unabated. And it seems like they are above the law. The government cannot do anything about the sugar cartels. And maybe the biggest problem with that issue of cartels is because the people who are running these cartels are actually in the government. They fight to be in the government so that they can control these businesses. Mr. Speaker, you are my neighbor, and you know very well, since the collapse of the sugar industry, very many people, in fact, millions of people have sunk into poverty. Millions of people have sunk into poverty, and therefore, it is time that as a country and as a House of Parliament, we need to do something about the suffering of the sugarcane farmers. And, Mr. Speaker, as I speak here today, this is not the first time that a motion or a bill about the sugar and sugarcane farming has come in this House. We have had numerous motions. We have had bills. We have had laws enacted in this country to manage the sugar industry. But nothing seems to be working. When you go in the government shelves, motions, bills, laws, regulations are gathering dust. Nobody seems to be paying attention to the farmers, to the sugarcane farmers. And that has actually led some of us as leaders to be in a very awkward position because we need to help the farmers. But the farmers, we don't get any assistance from the government. Mr. Speaker, as one of the speakers said, if we don't do something now, then we have to forget about the sugarcane industry. It is going to collapse totally in the next very few years. Because the factories that we have, like Mumia's sugar factory, there is a glimpse of hope that someone is trying to revive. But the reason why our sugar cannot competitively compete in the market today is because our production is still, we still use very obsolete equipment to produce sugar. Nowadays, with the Chinese, Japanese, and European equipments, they are as small as this desk. But the obsolete equipment that we have in Mia's sugar, one boiler is the size of the entire parliament. And that thing consumes electricity 100 times more than the modern equipment. So however much we try, we cannot produce sugar that is competitive in our modern market. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, I would like to say, first, I thank the House, I thank the members for the support they have given this motion, and I hope the government will put into consideration all the sentiments by the members of parliament and more so members who are really concerned about the sugarcane industry, the poverty that is killing the sugarcane farmers. It is time that we have to take action. We cannot continue talking about the sugarcane industry, the fail of the sugarcane industry, reviving the sugarcane industry. Mr. Speaker, we have talked about this thing for the last 30 years, but it seems we are not moving anywhere. It is now time the government has to be serious enough, look at the farmers and take the farmers seriously and empower them and let them benefit from sugarcane farming and sugarcane production. Mr. Speaker, with those few remarks, I beg to move. And before I sit down, I quote Standing Order 53.3, where I request the chair to defer the putting of this question to the next sitting as will be scheduled by the House Business Committee. Thank you.
Well said, and thank you so much. The decision on this motion, as requested by the honorable member, will be made the next time the motion is slated for a decision in the order paper. Before we go to the next motion, members, join me in welcoming students from Savelberg Primary School, Kajiado Central in Kajiado County, students from Mirema Academy, Kasarani, Nairobi County. They're in the public gallery and they're welcome to follow proceedings this morning and to Parliament. Next order.
Order number 9, motion number 6 of 2024, comprehensive reform of the education bursary schemes to ensure free basic education in Kenya.
Honorable Esther Passaris.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to move the following motion. That aware that Article 43.1, as read together with Article 53.1b of the Constitution, provides that every person has the right to education and enshrines the right of every child to free, compulsory, basic education. Further aware that Kenya's Vision 2030 identifies education as a crucial component for transforming the country into a globally competitive nation. Appreciating that bursaries play a vital role in supplementing funding for enhancing access to education, particularly for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and contributes to the realization of universal basic education, noting that various education bursaries exist in the country, including ward-based level bursaries, county government's bursary, National Government Constituency Development Fund, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, and the Presidential Secondary School bursaries, further noting that the evolution of bursary schemes from centralized to community-based administrations aimed to enhance education access, equity, and responsiveness to local needs, concerned that despite these efforts, the current bursary systems faces numerous challenges, including lack of standardized and transparent selection criteria, delay in disbursement of funds, and insufficient coverage of education costs leading to gaps in support. Further concerned that these challenges have resulted in persistent disparities in education access, increased dropout rates, particularly in secondary schools, due to financial constraints and strains on household incomes as families struggle to meet educational expenses not covered by bursaries. Acknowledging that the implementation of community-based bursary schemes has not fully achieved its intended objective, hence the need to re-evaluate the current bursary system with a view to ensure equitable and free access to quality education for all students, cognizant that the duty of the government to provide free basic education can best be achieved by consolidating education funds and directly remitting to public schools. Now, therefore, this House urges that the government, through the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, undertakes a comprehensive overhaul of the education bursary system with a view to collapse all bursary schemes and allocate the funds to the State Department of Education for provision of basic education through capitation to be directly remitted to the schools. Honorable Speaker, Article 43(1)(f), every person has the right to education. Article 53(1), every child has the right to free, compulsory, basic education. I want to underscore the word compulsory. That means no child should be out of school. And as we talk today, so many children are out of school because they have not been able to pay their school fees, and the schools are sending them home, including Form 4 leavers. Yesterday, I dealt with a case in my county where a student was sent home by the school, and the student is in Form 4, and the reason he's sent home because the student owes, the parents of the student owes 130,000 to the school. Now, this parent is a mama fua. She cannot afford the 130. And the school felt, even though it's 2 months to the exams, that let's send her home, put pressure on the mother. You cannot get water out of a stone. There is no way that Mama Fua, who I spoke to yesterday, and she told me that, you know what, I'm not even staying in my own house. It's been locked because I can't pay rent. She's not able to get enough jobs. So the Constitution establishes education as a fundamental right to individuals, for individuals' development in the nation's future. So this child, I want to paint a picture here, what's happening to this child. All the bursaries, the mother received 5,000 from the Langata Member of Parliament, Honorable Jalango. The mother is going to receive now, because she came to my awareness, 53,000 were put on the full scholarship that we give quite a few students. As NGAF, we only get 1.9 million shillings per constituency per year. MPs can spend anything between 50 million and 70 million. The problem we're having right now is that our bursaries individually, cannot ensure that all the students in our respective wards, constituencies, or counties can actually have that compulsory education that is within their right in the Constitution. So we're actually not living to the mandate of the Constitution. And I know it's going to cost a lot of money, but if we scrap out corruption, right, we should be able to ensure that Vision 2030, right, will be attained. All students in Kenya will achieve that basic education from ECD, primary, junior secondary, and secondary. And then help will kick in. But if we don't do this, then we're going to end up with a situation that is going to actually fail us as a country. We have so many young children right now loitering in the various estates because they cannot go to school. Some of them are in jail because they end up committing crimes. So we are failing the citizens of this country by not having education, the free basic education. Now, some students will make it, and those students who make it will end up going to university. Help will kick in. After we finish with free basic compulsory education, we then need to look at how we're going to handle TVET, because not all students will go to university. But one step at a time, we need to actually start this movement where we as MPs and leaders, with the various funds that we have, agree that we need to actually push the Ministry of Education oversight, provide the budget, so the Ministry of Education can provide free secondary education. What do I mean by free secondary education? I don't mean that we only provide the fees. You know, high school is currently free, all right? It's boarding schools that you pay anything from 40,000 to 79,000, all right? But the thing is, when I say free, I mean we have to provide the uniforms. We have to provide the books. We have to provide the teachers. We have to provide the sporting, the money that they need to go out for activities. I went to a primary school recently, and one of the students that I had taken to school, the reason they didn't go to school is because they didn't have uniform. I bought them the uniform, I took them to the primary school, and their school had just gone on a trip. It was a geography learning trip. That student and many other students whose parents could not afford 2,000 shillings could not go on those trips. I recall in my childhood days, when I used to go on school trips, there was no segregation, there was no discrimination. Whether you had money or not, the school provided the trip for you. So today we are doing something wrong. We are actually making parents and children grow up with very low self-esteem. The mother yesterday called me and told me, I am actually depressed. I'm in town with my child. Can you imagine what was going through that child's mind? That my mother is walking around from one Mheshimiwa's office to another, begging for my fees so I can go back and sit for my exams. That child is actually going to be demoralized. That child is going to be messed up emotionally. And I feel that we need to do something about that. There is also a lack of standardized criteria, the lack of uniform selection. I mean, how do we decide who requires the bursaries? I think we really need to make sure that it's free for all so that we don't have inequality, we don't have favoritism, and we don't have inefficiency in awarding the funds. And also, every MP, even the MP who puts the maximum from his NGCDF, 70 million to giving out bursaries, he's still not reaching everyone. And not every child that he gives 5, 10, 15,000 is actually going to complete school. That child is going to drop out of school because if he's in a boarding school, he requires 53,000. You give him 15,000, which is the highest ceiling, he's still going to be sent home. And then we are spending so much money on education. We give over 600 or 700 billion to the Ministry of Education. We give so much money for the teachers. And then we are sending these children home and the quality of education is going down. When I talk about the quality of education, right, when the school is performing bad, it's because half the time the student is actually sent home. In a year, the student spends one term at home. Can you imagine what is happening? This is when we end up with teenage pregnancies. This is when we end up with taking drugs because the mother now goes to work, the child is left unattended at home. We really need to become serious about free, basic, compulsory education. You can't even tell the chief, go pick up the children that haven't reported to school from transitioning from primary to secondary, go and take them to school. Which school is he going to take them? No uniform. First of all, uniform for me is overrated. It's still a very colonial thing. Government has got NYS. Why can't we provide standardized uniform for children? cheap, affordable for the government and provide it free for the children. How many times do I go to school and I see a young girl whose low self-esteem, besides being sent home, is wearing torn clothes? Really faded, torn clothes. Can you imagine the stigma that that child is going through? So why can't we provide that basic school uniform? Provide the books. And then, when it comes to the ministry, I mean, I am very, 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 very proud of the choice that the president made in CS Julius Migos Ogamba as the CS for Education. I have interacted with him. He has been to Parliament to answer questions. He's hands-on. He gets it. I actually talked to him this morning and I said, besides giving you the money and making sure you get the capitation to the schools, the order and the system of capitation also has to be managed. Because if we amalgamate our bursaries, it might be about 60, 70 billion. It's really 10% of what he's getting right now. But what we are saying is we want the government to provide free, basic, compulsory education. No child should be at home. Build more and more secondary schools. Make sure that if we say it's free education tomorrow, we will end up having to build extra classrooms. When we need more classrooms, we build classrooms based on one man, one shilling. Because what's going to happen is you'll have certain constituencies where the schools are overwhelmed. They'll need more classrooms. Let's have makeshift tents. Let's hire the teachers. Let's make sure. And then you know what? The government is going to have to come back and say, you know what, to do this, to the citizens. To do this, we need to collect this much money. But before the government asks for money from the citizens, right, they need to show us accountability for what they're getting. I know that to provide free basic education, we will need probably $1 trillion plus. But the thing is, when we give that $1 trillion plus to the schools, are we getting the schools to actually perform? Are we devolving corruption even to the schools? I've heard people say that even within the various funds there is corruption. I think we have to really have a moral reflection as a country, as leaders and as parents, because it's not just the leaders who are corrupt. Also, you have parents who are corrupt, you have citizens who are corrupt, and it's a chain reaction for everything that is going on in this country. So what we have to do is to ensure that we collect the resources and then we disperse the resources, because the delays of resources, if we say that the government is going to give the capitation, if the government doesn't send the capitation on time, doesn't send the correct amount of capitation, then what will happen is the schools are going to be auctioned, because some of the schools right now have a lot of money that they owe. So we need to basically have an audit done about what would it cost to have complete free education. Now, I know that we have free education, but there are so many hidden costs. The hidden costs come in the uniforms, which are very expensive, and it's a cartel and a racket in itself. The hidden cost comes in the school board of management and parents association asking for money from the parents. The hidden cost comes in the feeding programs. Dishina County in Nairobi is working for primary schools. We should also make it work for secondary school. We should also make sure that it's fortified and it has a variety. I've heard students also complain, because even if we're giving something for free, we have to give something that is of quality. Student wants variety. I've heard Nairobi students asking for chapati, not rice and dengu and beans every day. So when I speak about amalgamation of all the bursaries, I'm not speaking only about us, because we know that that's not going to be enough. But as leaders, if we make the first step and say, you know what, we're not going to get involved in bursaries, but then we oversight the ministry, then we provide the resources, then we go to our constituents and we talk to them about the need to actually have money for education. We've put money for housing as a housing levy. Should we think in future about an education levy where money is collected specifically for education, where parents will actually be able to say, you know what, we're not going to oppose this, because this education levy is going to ensure that my child goes to school from ECD all the way to secondary. Then in the end, they get into help and they get the funding model where they'll get the loans. Honorable Speaker, when we merge all these bursary schemes into a single fund managed by the State Department of Education, this consolidation will eliminate duplication and ensure standardization and increase efficiency in the fund management. When I say duplication, what do I mean? There are people who know how to apply for bursaries. And those people who know how to apply for bursaries will go from the ward to the MP to the woman rep. You know, they'll go everywhere. But there are many who don't know. Like the lady yesterday who finally managed to reach me. But even if she had reached me, the funds was not enough. So we're discriminating. Because why should one child get it and not another? So why don't we as leaders fight for free, basic, compulsory education? Give up this fund, which is actually causing us not to oversight the Ministry of Education properly. Let us look at let the ministry come back and give us an answer. This is a step in the right direction. Give us an answer as to how much money do we need to fund education. We have development partners. We've got private sector partners. You know, we've got the Wings to Fly. We've got so many people, MasterCard, so many people funding education. Can we pool all those resources and ensure that every child in Kenya, and a child, I'm talking about children up to secondary, goes for free? And when it comes to boarding, I mean, it's so disheartening to see children walking with mattresses, walking with big boxes, going to boarding school. Let's equip the boarding schools. Let them show up to school to learn. And let's give them all those facilities in the school. What will it cost for us to do that? Let's have an audit. Let's start the process so that we can ensure that we actually live up to the promises that were asked for by Kenyans enshrined in our constitution. Honorable Speaker, these reforms will ensure that every student, irregardless of their social-economic background, have equitable access to quality education. Funds will reach those who need them without delay or discrimination, without mothers and fathers having to tarmac, without children having to be sent home from school. Honorable Speaker, by covering all costs associated with basic education, the reforms will reduce the dropout rates in secondary school, enabling more students to complete their studies. In addition, families will be relieved by the burden of struggling to cover school costs, not currently covered by bursaries such as exam fees, uniforms, materials, promoting financial stability at the household level. Honorable Speaker, allow me to emphasize that providing free basic education is the responsibility of the government, is a responsibility that the government must uphold. Reforming the bursary system is not just a policy change, it is a moral and constitutional obligation to ensure that no child is denied the opportunity to learn due to being marginalized. I therefore urge that the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with all relevant stakeholders, undertake this comprehensive overhaul and implement the new system to provide free basic education for all. As I conclude, I reiterate that this motion is about ensuring the government fulfills its constitutional duty to provide free and compulsory education to every child in Kenya. Picture a young student in the informal settlements or a rural village whose dream for education is currently threatened by financial barriers. This reform, by consolidating bursary schemes and directly funding schools, will lift the burden and ensure that no child is left behind simply because of lack of resources. I'm aware that the Speaker engaged the Ministry of Education through the clerk to provide us with information that will birth a legislative proposal to address this issue. Equally, the Constitutional Court sitting in Nakuru directed that there is a need to consolidate bursaries. Honorable Speaker, this reform will lay the foundation for an equitable education system, one that not only opens doors for these young minds, but also builds a future where education empowers entire generations. As we secure their access to learning, we are also securing Kenya's social and economic development, creating a nation where every child can fulfill their potential. I have to end by saying that 70% of the students...
My colleagues will support that if all our students will have access. Today, I will tell you, for example, in my constituency, I get about 21,000 applications for bursary. Only about 9,000 of them benefit from it. And even the 9 that benefit partially. They get between 5 to 10,000, sometimes 15,000. The ones that go on the scholarship program are very few. Of the 9,000, it's just because I've tried to balance to ensure that at least in every household, I have one benefiting. But it is such a small amount. For families that are coming from low-income areas, it is not adequate. Madam Speaker, in conclusion, this motion presents a transformative steps towards improving access to quality education in our country. The challenges of inequity, inefficiency, and insufficient funding can no longer be ignored. By adopting this motion, we will be consolidating our efforts to provide a fair, transparent, and effective system of support for all students, especially those from disadvantaged backgrounds. I fully support the proposal to collapse the bursary schemes into a single centralized funds to be directly remitted to schools. It is only by taking such a bold and decisive step that we can ensure the full realization of every child's right to education and make Kenya a truly equitable and prosperous nation. Madam Speaker, let me add that by saying that we collapse all the bursary schemes into one, the rider is that we are doing this, we are proposing to do this as a first step towards offering real free primary and secondary and even tertiary education for free to all our students. The reason why members of parliament have continued to champion that bursaries be administered through NGCDF is to address the gap that many students were missing out. But if we can be able to consolidate this, and the government agrees that we are moving towards a free provision of basic education, it will be a step in the right direction. I want to also take this opportunity to commend actually the government for an attempt at proper investment. This, for example, the last financial year, we have invested over 640 billion in the Ministry of Education. If we collapse all this, and it is this house, and I want to challenge my colleague members, that this is a budget-making house. If we truly want education to be free in this country, the power is with us. The power is with us in this house. We can remove funds from where we think it is not necessary. We can continue to cut budgets from all other sectors that are not as critical as education, which is a basic human right, and we allocate the Ministry of Education the funds that are adequate for it to provide education. We will not be having all these challenges we are seeing today with the new university funding model, students on the streets, and now their own teachers on the streets. I want to also add, Madam Speaker, that free education is not only school fees, it's not only uniforms, it's not only books, but also adequate teachers. Today, if you look at the JS, which is a junior secondary, in most parts of this country, you have maybe one teacher or two in a school with students who are supposed to be examined in about 13 or more areas. Those two teachers, some of them are Swahili teachers. You're expecting them to train our students on mathematics and sciences. It's just not possible. So when we are talking about free education, we are talking about a comprehensive nature, whereby we have adequate teachers, we have adequate infrastructure, we have, they are facilitated in school to ensure that our students get quality education. So that, because if we don't do it, it is just a time bomb. With those very many remarks, Madam Speaker, I beg to second.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nyamita. Honorable members, I propose the question that aware that Article 43(1), as read together with Article 51(b) of the Constitution, provides that every person has a right to education and enshrines the right of every child to free and compulsory education. Further aware that Kenya Vision 2030 identifies education as a critical component for transforming the country into a global competitive nation. Appreciating that bursaries play a vital role in supplementing funding for enhancing access to education, particularly for students from disadvantaged backgrounds, and contribute to the realization of universal health, basic education. Noting that various education bursaries exist in the country, including ward-level bursary, county government bursary, national government constituencies bursary, I'll take that, National Government Constituencies Development Fund, NGCDF, the National Government Affirmative Action Fund, NGAF, and the Presidential Secondary School Bursary, PSSB. Further noting that evolution of bursary schemes from centralized to community-based administration aimed to enhance education access, equality, and responsiveness to local needs, concerned that despite these efforts, the current bursary system faces numerous challenges, including lack of standardization and transparent selection criteria, delay in disbursement of funds, and insufficient coverage of education costs, leading to gaps in support. Further, concerned that these challenges have resulted in persistent disparities in education access, increased dropout rates, particularly in secondary schools, due to financial constraints and strain on household incomes as families struggle to meet education expenses not covered by bursaries, acknowledging that implementation of community-based bursary schemes has not fully achieved its intended objective, hence the need to reevaluate the current bursary system with a view to ensure equitable and free access to quality education for all students, cognizant that, that the duty of the government is to provide free education can best be achieved by consolidating education fund and directly remitting to public schools. Now, therefore, this House urges the government, through the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, undertakes a comprehensive overhaul of the education bursary system with a view to collapsing all bursary schemes and allocating the fund to the State Department of Basic Education for provision of free basic education through capitation to be directly remitted to schools. Yes, Honorable Kiaria, what is out of order?
Madam Speaker, for sure nothing is out of order because the chair can never be out of order. I'm rising on standing order number 97, and I'm cognizant of how important the motion that has been brought here by the county MP for Nairobi is. And you can see, even tell from the interest that on a Wednesday morning, members have filled the chairs and the benches in the House to debate this motion. Madam Speaker, my concern is on the time we have to debate this. And I'm standing on standing order number 97, which provides that this House can decide to limit the time of debate. And in this case, I'm proposing that we can limit the time of debate from 10 minutes to around 5 minutes, so that as many members can get the time and opportunity to debate this most important motion, Madam Speaker. So, Madam Speaker, I'm just requesting that you find out from the House whether we would agree to limit the time to around 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Thank you very much, Honorable KJ. Honorable members, at the moment I have 17 requests, and I'm sure each one of you would like to debate this subject. So I would like to find out whether it is the mood of the House that we reduce from 10 minutes to 5 minutes for this. Yes, indeed it is, and we now proceed with debate. The first opportunity will go to the Honorable Timothy Wanyonyi, member for Westlands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, to contribute this motion. Madam Speaker, this is a very critical motion brought by my county women rep, Mrs. Esther Passaris, Honorable Esther Passaris. Madam Speaker, bursary is a lifeline to our education.
Order, Honorable Member for Westlands. Honorable members, this morning at the public gallery, we have schools that have visited the National Assembly. We have Aga Khan Academy, Nairobi, Westlands constituency, Nairobi County. And we have Nzeluni Primary and Junior Secondary from Mwingi West in Kitui County. I was saying this so that we can give the Honorable Member for Westlands, as you debate on this subject, you may kindly welcome the students on behalf of the House. Please give the mic to the Honorable Wanyonyi. Give the microphone to the Honorable
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I would like to, on behalf of all the members of this House, to welcome the students from Akakana Academy, and this is a school in my constituency, Madam Speaker. And I would like to encourage them to follow the proceedings of the House and also learn how Parliament functions, because I know these are the leaders that we are preparing, Madam Speaker, to take over from us. And this is the House of Parliament, the National Assembly. Welcome and feel free, enjoy, ask as many questions from the staff of Parliament who are with you, what you want to know, so that when you go away, know that we are here to support you and make sure that schools function. Madam Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity. Madam Speaker, as we debate this motion on the bursaries, Madam Speaker, I remember a long time ago, there were government bursaries, and they were enshrined in secrecy, because during our time in school, the people who used to get bursaries, I think they were coming from the office of the president. I don't know whether it was Minister of Education, but mostly from the president. And Madam Speaker, along the time, things have happened. We have come with the devolution, CDF came, and many other things, Madam Speaker. We are trying as much as we can, Madam Speaker, to devolve functions from the national government as far as to the smallest unit in the administrative system, Madam Speaker, and that is at the ward level, from the constituency to the ward level, Madam Speaker, so that these funds are more accessible to people, Madam Speaker, so that people can benefit more from the county, from the constituency, and from the presidential fund, Mr. Speaker. Madam Speaker, all these things happen around the constituency. And I know most of these, especially the NHCDF, Madam Speaker, the bursaries through NHCDF, I know it is functioning and is working very well. There are many, many other bursaries, and this is to the advantage of the children and the parents of this country, Madam Speaker. What we are looking is that we put more money in these bursaries so that we can move and add more money. Madam Speaker, under the PBI, we had proposed that we increase from 2.5% allocation of the funds to the CDF to 5%. And that will mean that we can give school fees, Madam Speaker, to children. We can pay full school fees, or we can give a minimum of 20,000 to a student, Madam Speaker. And that can make sure that that student, especially those who are in day school, if you pay 20,000, Madam Speaker, you'll have paid almost the full amount of the school fees for the whole year. So we are feeling, we know that, Madam Speaker, the intention of the mover of this motion, Madam Speaker, is to get efficiency and make sure that there's enough money for bursaries, to cater for school fees for children, and many other things, Madam Speaker. But, Madam Speaker, I am very concerned about centralizing the fund or collapsing these all other bursaries into one. Madam Speaker, I don't know if it's going to create efficiency when we bring it under one center. It's going to create more problems, because we have, look at the help, the students at the higher education, Madam Speaker, at the university, accessing help is a big problem. But when we come to accessing bursaries through the NHCDF or at the ward level or even at NGAF, Madam Speaker, it's much easier, because you know where these offices are, and we know that we move and go and issue bursaries outside there, Madam Speaker, in the open, and people are very happy with it. I'm very sure that what the intention of Mheshimiwa Esther Bursaries is to create efficiency in the issuance of bursaries and increasing money in the issuance, Madam Speaker. But I have an issue and a problem with centralizing or collapsing all these bursaries into one. Let us leave them the way they are, but
achieve the intended intention. Madam Bursaries comes from Nairobi. When she came up with this motion, I'm sure she must have gone to Kibera, to Madare, to Kawangware, to all the low-income areas where people are really deprived. But the problem is, if you are going to give this responsibility to Jogo House, even the many who are going to school today will not be able to go there. Sometimes we sit around, we think that everybody has access to smartphone. Everybody can access application of a bursary. Many do not have any idea where the member of parliament offices are, let alone trying to apply bursary at the national level. The advantage of what is happening today, if we members of parliament are diligent, whether ANGAF or NGCDF, is for the two of us to put our heads together so that in collaboration, we are able to coordinate so that there's no duplication. There's this thing called presidential bursary. Why is it necessary? Who at that level, at the ministry level, knows the people of Manyatajilo in Saku constituency? How many households are there? Who are the poorest of the poor? So for that reason, we cannot abrogate our responsibilities to somebody else who we know he will be unable to achieve that. In Nairobi, the issue of school feeding. Now the county is taking over. What has happened with the ministry? So with those few remarks,
Thank you very much, Member for Saku. The Honorable Janet Citiene, Member for Tarbo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice. Madam Speaker, I want to thank Honorable Passaris for bringing this motion, which has good intent, but I stand to oppose the consolidation of the funds because it will be unfair to very many needy students. Decentralizing these funds was the best thing that ever happened to assist the very needy students in this country. And that is why we have the various kitties that support the needy students in the ground. The NGCDF, the NGAF, the county fund, all of them touch the people on the ground. And if you look at it closely, you will realize that the NGCDF system reaches the very, very villages in the way the bursaries are given to the students. They are able to reach the villages and be able to identify who are these very needy students in those villages in every sub-county. Madam Speaker, what will happen to those students that are in the middle colleges? How will they be supported, the very needy students? Whereas we are talking about basic education ministry taking over this, consolidating the fund and giving out free primary education. What will happen to the middle colleges, where we have very needy students that need us to identify on the ground, because we are the people on the ground. The MCS, the MPs, the women reps are the ones who can actually identify who are these people in the villages. Using the village elders, we are able to reach those very needy students to afford an education. Madam Speaker, basic education is free in this country. We only need to increase capitation to these institutions and ensure there is efficient, effective management of these funds to be able to provide an education for every primary school child, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, the ministry also do not have the capacity to reach to the ground and be able to identify the very needy students who need to be supported by this fund, Madam Speaker. So I stand to oppose. Let those kitties work as they are. We only need to harmonize the way we do in our various areas. That what the MP has, when a student benefits from the NGCDF kitty, then another student will benefit from the MCA kitty. Another different student, needy student, will benefit from the county government kitty. So, Madam Speaker, this has been the best way to be able to give bursaries to those very needy students. So, Madam Speaker, coordination is key, and maybe increasing capitation to the Ministry for Basic Education to be able to provide free primary education. But this fund, if it has to be consolidated, then it should be consolidated and put into NGCDF kitty for it to be dispersed to the very needy students. Because like my colleagues have said, there is nowhere this NGCDF bursary fund has not reached within the locations, within the villages. So, Madam Speaker, I oppose and stand that those kitties remain as they were. The only thing we need to do is ensure there is capitation from the Ministry of Basic Education is enhanced and it is efficiently utilized for purposes of free primary education, Madam Speaker, and I stand to oppose. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, Member for Tarbo. The Honorable Raphael Wanjala, Member for Budalangi. Kindly pass the mic to the Honorable Member for Budalangi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this chance to contribute on this very, very extremely important motion. Madam Speaker, education is equalizer. If you ask these honorable members in which families they are coming from, each one of them has a history to tell. How they grew up, how they came up, and what they were doing. But because of education, it has helped them to be where they are today. Even if some of them were coming from poor families, even if some of them were coming from rich families, today they are earning same salary, they enjoy same privileges, they know how to live amongst each other because of education. They know how to communicate. Even if they go to Europe, they know how to live with each other, how to talk and how to address others, and how to associate. That is because of education. So education is key in each one of us' life, because that is what equalizes us to be what we are supposed to be. Madam Speaker, education, as enshrined in our Constitution, is a right. And when something is inscribed in our Constitution as a right that cannot be varied, then let it remain a right for each one of our young children to access it without any hindrance. And that is why I want to congratulate Madam Passaris for this motion. And Madam Speaker, when I was in school, there were no bursaries. And we know what we suffered from, as we came from poor families. And that's why I'm saying each one of us here has a history and where they have come from. But Madam Speaker, today bursaries are being abused. How are they being abused? Is that you find there is presidential bursary. Now, Mr. President from State House does not know which child is poor to be given that money. Other people are sent. The people who are sent have interests wherever they are. Today, you will find an MCA is giving bursary. Higher education is not developed. Why is an MCA giving bursary? governor is giving bursary. Higher education is not devolved. Why is our governor giving bursary? That is why you find Honorable Zamzam saying, if the governor of Mombasa got 600 million to distribute to students within that county, how many constituencies do we have? If we have 4, if we have 5, if we have 6, that means each constituency will get 100 million. Madam Speaker, 100 million alone is enough for that constituency, for every student to go to school without any problem. But you will find, as he has given 600, MP has given maybe 40, MCA has given his, President has given his, Governor has given his, Women Rep is telling you she also gave hers. This is a lot of money that is going to waste, and most of them, sometimes it's embezzled. How is it embezzled? Some people will fill those forms, take to schools, collude with the bursars, and money is sent to those schools as if they are paying for the students. And later they will come and collect this money. That is why we are in support that today we need to consolidate, to amalgamate all this money that is dismembered in various offices.
Thank you, Member for Budalangi. The Honorable Jackson Leku Montare, Member for Samburu East. Your time is over. We go to the member for Samburu East. He has been waiting.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Speaker, for giving this chance to contribute. Madam Speaker.
Order, member for Budalangi. You have contributed. You have done very well. I don't know why you are shouting. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, education in Kenya is very costly. Madam Speaker, we have been giving bursaries, and every other office which has that role to give bursary, we have been giving bursaries. But Madam Speaker, what is the cost of one child to go through the education system? The bursary we have, Madam Speaker, and even though the bursary with the governors and every other person does not amount to the cost of educating one learner. And Madam Speaker, the worst thing we can do as a parliament is to take the money we have to the Ministry of Education. It is not practical, Madam Speaker, for us to take the bursary to be accessed from the Ministry of Education, which even members of parliament, we are not accessing what is there. So, Madam Speaker, the very important thing we have to do is to increase the bursary so that we'll be able to fund the education of our children properly. What we lack, because even if you look at what the governors are giving, maybe a student can get 15,000, plus the 10,000 even from the MP. That is 25,000. But what you are supposed to give is more than 100,000, Madam Speaker. The Gov bursary is very little. In fact, very few students will get the Gov bursary. So I think the right thing we have to do is to increase the bursary so that we will be able to meet the cost which is required. Madam Speaker, even the capitation is not reaching properly because there are a lot of delays, and even the ministry, by the way, they will tell us, even when we ask, money is in school, but you just inquire from the principals, money has never been released. So I think as a house or a parliament, if there are other money that we have to add to the bursary so that we will be able to pay. That is the best thing. And Madam Speaker, as members of parliament, if maybe even us to release what we have, our children will learn without being asked any other contribution, we are more than willing. But this is not enough. The captation plus what we have, even the CS education answered us here, because somebody asked, if we release all the bursary we have to Ministry of Education, is it enough for our children to learn freely? But the answer was no. So I think we are not getting the right to say, let this bursary go to the Education, Ministry of Education, because it will not be free. And I think that is the whole thing. We have to increase the bursary so that we will be able to meet the needs of our students. Thank you, Madam Speaker. I oppose this.
The Honorable Kathambi Chepkwony, member for Njoro.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for granting me this moment for me to do contribution. Let me start by saying that Honorable Bursary sent an idea, but at the moment, it cannot work. And that's why, Madam Speaker, I wish to oppose it seriously because of these reasons. Madam Speaker, right now, being a member of parliament from a single constituency, we still have a lot of challenge from even the Ministry of Education itself. Madam Speaker, the amount of money which is called infrastructure funds in the ministry, the distribution in this country, it is purely unfair. Madam Speaker, sometimes you get some constituencies getting funding for infrastructure from the ministry, but you don't get as a single constituency. Therefore, Madam Speaker, if I can sit in this parliament and support that there's consolidation of funds so that it can be taken to the Department of Basic Education Department, it will be purely unfair for the poor children in this country. Madam Speaker, through my experience, this is my second term in Njoro constituency, having been elected. What we do as single constituency members of parliament, the ministry cannot even afford to do it. We make sure that in every village, Madam Speaker, we know the poor child from that one specific ministry. If today, Madam Speaker, even accessing some, many of the projects we are requesting from the ministry is hard, how can they, on this earth, honestly, that ensure that if the money was to be consolidated and they were to get it, if it could be fair for the children, Madam Speaker, it will be very hard. The first thing, Madam Speaker, the ministry itself actually have no capacity to identify those poor children. Madam Speaker, the ministry will get what we call the burden of proof for the poor child in the villages. Therefore, Madam Speaker, I'm standing to say that if today we can sit in this parliament and we say that the GAF funds, the NGCDF funds is consolidated, it is taken back to the ministry, Madam Speaker, that would be very wrong. And why am I saying that, Madam Speaker? It is because there will be unfairness to the poor children. And Madam Speaker, I'm happy today that you are seated there and you are single constituency member of parliament like myself, and we know actually what we undergo in our respective constituencies. Therefore, Madam Speaker, even the proposal of this one of collapsing all the bursary schemes, it will make it very hard for our poor children to access education. And why, Madam Speaker, I take it very seriously to protect bursary in this country, it is because the funds we have given to the poor children in our villages has given them a level to sit like even also the able students in this country, therefore bringing away, proposing that we consolidate the funds. Madam Speaker, there will be a lot of cries in this country. And Madam Speaker, you have also experienced, most of us single constituency members of parliament, lately, even after the court declaration of NCDF nullification, Madam Speaker, it has also brought a lot of thorny issues in the country. Kenyans are worried. Are the poor children going to access education if we are really encountering all this? And Madam Speaker, it is good to say this. Let us not every minute propose scientific texting things in these countries. Let us not collapse what is working for this country. Madam Speaker, the 290 constituencies, the amount of money members of parliament are giving to the poor children, if it can be collapsed, it will bring more pain to the poor children. Therefore, I oppose for now. I think let us improve the systems which can make.
Thank you, Member Fonjoro. I'll go to the Honorable Mishimboko, Member for Likoni.
Asante sana, Mheshimiwa Spika. Mheshimiwa Spika, nasimama kuzungumzia hoja hii ambayo imeletwa na Mheshimiwa Esther Passaris, na niseme nimeona ya kwamba lengo lake limekuwa lengo bora ya kuhakikisha ya kwamba watoto wetu wanaweza kupata elimu vile inavyofaa. Lakini nataka nizungumzie ya kwamba hoja hii iliyoletwa, ikiwa hatutaiangalia kimakini, tutarudi kule nyuma tulikokuwa. Kwanza kabisa tujiulize, kwa nini taifa letu limechukua mbinu ya ugatuzi? Taifa letu lilichukua mbinu ya ugatuzi kwa sababu hapo awali ilipokuwa fedha zote zinawekwa pale juu, ilikuwa ni changamoto kubwa kuhakikisha ya kwamba Wakenya wengi kule mashinani wameweza kufikiwa na fedha hizi, ndiposa waweze kupata elimu. Nikiangalia hiyo miaka ya nyuma, kabla hatujakuwa na vitengo vya fedha hizi za NGCDF, fedha hizi za NGAF, na fedha hizi zikipitia katika kaunti zetu zile 47, tunaangalia ya kwamba kulikuwa hakuna usawa katika upande wa kielimu. Haswa nikiangalia zile sehemu ambazo tunasema ni sehemu zilizotengwa ama ni sehemu za wachache, tukiangalia haswa katika mambo ya kielimu, tuliona ya kwamba sehemu zile hazikuwa zinapata usawa katika zile fedha za kielimu. Na wale waliokuwa kabla ya sisi waliposema ya kwamba hizi fedha zishuke mashinani, pale chini mashinani, mbunge ambaye yuko katika eneo bunge atajua wanafunzi katika eneo bunge lake, na atajua wale ambao pia wana changamoto, ambao ni maskini, ambao wana shida, wana uhaba wa fedha, ataweza kuwaleta karibu na kuweza kupata fedha zile. Fedha hizi zinapopelekwa katika akaunti ile ya juu ya kitaifa, tunajiuliza wale watu walioko chini mashinani wataweza kuzifikia vipi? Leo hii Mkenya anaweza kuja katika ofisi ya mbunge na aweze kuomba basari, anaweza kwenda katika ofisi ya kaunti aweze kuomba basari, na ofisi ya yule ambaye tunamuita mjumbe katika ile kaunti anaweza kufikiwa pale. Je, fedha hizi zikiwa pale juu, huyu Mkenya aliye chini, aliye mlala hoi, aliye maskini ataweza kufika vipi? Tujiulize, hizi fedha ambao kwa Kiingereza tunasema capitation, ama fedha zinazowekewa kila mwanafunzi, tumekuwa na changamoto ngapi? Tumekuwa na changamoto nyingi sana, ambapo shule nyingi sana zimekuwa hazipati fedha hizi, na wakipata wanapata kuchelewa, ama wanapata robo ama nusu ya fedha hizi. Hiyo ni changamoto moja. Changamoto ya pili, kuna fedha zile za muundo misingi ambazo zinatoka kwa wizara. Mimi sasa hivi ukiniuliza, shule zangu nyingi hazipati fedha hizo. Nimekuwa nikifuatilia, nikienda kwa wizara, nikiandika mabarua, nikiteta, lakini napata fedha zile siwezi kuzipata. Na pia fedha zile zinatolewa kisiasa. Iwapo wewe pengine utasikizana na yule waziri ama uko katika serikali, utaweza kuzipata. Ikiwa wewe uko katika upinzani, mara nyingi sana unaenda unazungumza, husikizwi na hakuna kinachofanyika. Nataka niambie wabunge wenzangu, tusirudi kule kwenye changamoto ambazo tulikuwa tunazipata. Sisi wenyewe tunakaa na Wakenya wetu pale mashinani, tunawajua, tunawafahamu, tunajua changamoto zao, ndiposa tunaweza kuwapatia hizi basari. Hata tukisema tuziunganishe zote, ziwekwe pale juu, hazitafidia kuweza kupeleka katika mashule yetu yote yaliyoko. Ukumbuke, tuna shule za umma, tuna pia zile shule za kibinafsi, lakini zote zinasoma watoto wetu, sisi kama Wakenya na sisi kama viongozi. Kwa hivyo mimi nataka niseme, sisi jukumu la kufanya ni kuweka utaratibu mzuri unaofaa. Tuseme kwa mfano, ikiwa fedha ya county itasimamia koleji na zile university, basi fedha za mjumbe ziweze kuangalia shule za upili, na pengine fedha zile za yule mjumbe katika county ziweze kuangalia pengine zile shule maalum, na fedha zile ambazo zinaletwa na kiongozi wa kina mama. Kuna shule maalum, shule za watoto ambao hawaoni, shule ambazo wana ulemavu na shule zile maalum. Hizo ndio njia, tukae chini tufikirie, je, tutazipeleka vipi ndio isiwe mwanafunzi mmoja amefuata fedha zote hizo na wengine wengi wamekosa. Lakini kusema tunaziregesha pale juu, sisi tutakuwa tunapata shida sana. Itakuwa ni omba, kila siku unashinda omba, uingie ofisi hino, utoke ofisi hino, umpige huyu simu, apende awe amependa ametaka ndio uletewe. Hatutarudi huko, tulitoka huko.
Asante Mheshimiwa Mishi Mboko. The Honorable Abdul Haro, Mandera South. And thank you for your patience.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity. I'll start by thanking Honorable Esther Passaris for this motion on comprehensive reform of education bursary schemes to ensure free basic education in Kenya. And from the word go, I would want to say that I oppose this motion, and for the reasons that follow. Honorable Speaker, I would like to draw the attention of everybody to the prayers in this, the prayer in this motion. The prayer says, now therefore this House urges that the government, through the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the relevant stakeholders, undertakes a comprehensive overhaul of the education bursary systems with a view of collapsing all bursary schemes and allocating the funds to State Department of Basic Education for provision of basic education through capitation to be directly remitted to schools. And the reason why I'm drawing the attention of Kenyans to this prayer is because this is a double-edged sword. Honorable Speaker, if we go to the paragraph of the same motion, which quotes Article 43.1 and Article 53.1b, it is clear that basic education is enshrined in our Constitution already as a right, that every child in this country must have basic education as a right. What we need to do is not to reverse the progress we have already made in terms of decentralization of bursaries and try to reinvent a wheel of remaking basic education in this country. What we need to do, if every child in this country, if we ensure as a house that appropriates funds, if we make sure that every child in this country has enough capitation, and we increase the funding for capitation to the Ministry of Education because they're already dealing with capitation, then we can achieve the dream of basic education in this country. And the reason why I'm calling it a double-edged sword is because, one, the reason why we've had the decentralization of bursary in the first place, there's a history to it. It was a question of trying to deal with marginalization, which was already in place, where students from poor families, particularly those from rural areas, were not able to access any scholarships or any fundings that were being administered from the Ministry of Education. Secondly, the funds we are talking about, whether they are NGAF, whether they are NGCDF, constituency bursary, ward, or county government, are not only funding basic education. We are covering even university students. We are even covering students in private universities, which is not covered under this motion. And I must say, and I've always said, We have students in private universities who are not private Kenyans. These are Kenyan citizens like other students, and they also benefit from this bursary. So trying to, reverse the decentralization of bursary so that we can fund basic education, I think is defeatist, and it's a matter that we need to oppose, and I really oppose. We should focus more, I think, as an advice to the sponsor of the motion, Honorable Esther Passaris, we should focus more on how to make free education a reality, given that we already have the goodwill and the support of the provisions in the Constitution, that is Article 43.1 and Article 53.1(b). And the fact is, as many members have already said, the Ministry of Education already has a lot of things that they're supposed to do, including development of infrastructure countrywide. We know the chaos that are there, and we don't think we need to add them more burden, which they already have no capacity to deal with the other functions, and we add them more functions, which will be promoting them to more inefficiency. Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Timothy Toroitich, member for Marakwet West.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for granting me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. From the onset, I wish to thank the Honorable Passaris for this motion, but Honorable Speaker, from the onset, I have certain reservations for it. Honorable Speaker, is the system broken? My answer is no. Do we have challenges in the system? Certainly we do. Can they be addressed? Can we fix it? Yes, we can. Honorable Speaker, the issue here, the elephant in the room is the issue of duplication. Whether it is offered through the presidential bursary or through the NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, the issue is there is a problem with the issue of duplication of bursary. Honorable Speaker, how do we fix? We cannot fix the broken system by consolidating the bursary to the Ministry of Education. Honorable Speaker, what we need to do as a House, this is Parliament. We make law. The best way to fix it, let us develop a system where duplication shall be avoided, so that when one student is given through the presidential bursary, then the same cannot be duplicated by NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, the other issue is this. We have to respect the Constitution in this country. Honorable Speaker, under the 4th schedule of the Constitution, pre-primary function is a function of the county government. Pre-primary is a mandate of the county government. Why should the county government in this country be allowed to give bursaries to those in secondary schools, colleges, and universities? That is the function of the national government. And for that reason, Honorable Speaker, what should be done? We should align resources, follow functions. We should align our bursary system so that bursary that is given by the county government, which is illegal and unconstitutional, let it be taken to the national government and be managed by CDF. Honorable Speaker, if there is a system that is working, and it is unfortunate that the court made a declaration declaring CDF as a nullity. And Honorable Speaker, even as you speak of CDF in this House, as a lawyer, I know that we are in the winding up period because we have been given up to 2026, unless we appeal. And of course, I don't agree with the decision of the court, although I respect, because one of the most efficient system of managing bursaries in this country is the CDF. We've never had major audit queries by the Office of the Auditor General in respect to bursaries managed by CDF. Honorable Speaker, I have read the report, the Senate PIC report on bursaries offered by the county governments. Honorable Speaker, there are serious audit issues that have been raised in respect to bursaries that are managed illegally and unconstitutionally by the county governments. Bursaries which should be managed and run by the national government through the NGCDF. Honorable Speaker, I stand to oppose the motion that intends to consolidate bursaries in this country. And I've said the system is not broken.
Order.
What we need.
Order. I'll give you a minute. Something is happening on row 3, on my right. I think it must be very interesting, but please, can you just reduce? Member for Emukor Dikri, with your team, please. You have 1 minute to conclude. You have 1 minute to conclude. Member for
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, as I've said, I respect the Honorable Member for Nairobi, but I've said the system is not broken. The only thing we need to do is to reshape what we currently have. Let us align what we have with the Constitution. Let us do away with bursaries that are managed by the county governments, and let it be managed by the national government through the NGCDF, which of course I believe that the appeal that we shall make on NGCDF will go through, so that NGCDF is finally entrenched in the Constitution, and those bursaries that are outside.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Geoffrey Mulanya, member for Nambale. Not in the House.
Yes, present, Madam Speaker.
You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, thank you for giving me this opportunity to contribute this particular motion. As debated by my colleagues, Madam Speaker, I wish to congratulate the Honorable Passaris for bringing forth this motion for debate in this House. Indeed, it's true that we have various bursaries in this country that lead to duplication, whereby some people benefit more than others, while others miss out completely. However, Madam Speaker, we take the route of amalgamating these particular bursaries to put the fund into one consolidated fund and place it under the management of the Ministry of Education will be making steps backwards. Because we realize the gains made by the NGCDF bursaries that it has brought equality in this particular country. Madam Speaker, we appreciate that from the introduction of the NGCDF, we have had so many day secondary schools in this country. In each and every area of the Republic of Kenya, we realize that almost every primary right now has a secondary school that has been built by the NGCDF. And following that, we find that majority of the beneficiary of the bursaries disbursed by the members of parliament through NGCDF are students attending the day secondary school. Majority of Kenyans who are able to afford school fees for their children, they normally take them to the boarding schools. So when we say that we amalgamate this particular bursary with other funds and then place it under the Ministry of Education, which is even unable to release capitation fund to these very, very day schools. Because you will meet, if you talk to the members of parliament, every time they meet the principals of these schools, they face the problem of release of capitation of these particular schools. So, Madam Speaker, the only thing that we need to look at this particular moment is regulation as a house. How can we regulate so that we have proper legislation to control the issue of duplication, so that when one beneficiary gets from the member of parliament, he should not get it again from the Minister of Education. Madam Speaker, we will not, as my colleague, the Honorable Tretici mentioned to this particular House, that we found that one of the areas that we are talking about duplication, we have the ward level by bursary, we have the county bursary, yet under the Schedule 4 of our Constitution, education, basic education is a function of the national government. The county government responsibilities under the Constitution is pre-primary education. But they have abandoned their primary duties and now also jumped into offering the function of the national government. We will note from the ruling of the court last Friday, when they declared the NGCDF Act unconstitutional, one of the reasons they cited was the fact that the NGCDF function is attempting to delve into functions which are supposed to be devolved. For instance, sports and environment activities. So, if indeed the functions of education are left for the national government, then we must have the money for bursaries just limited to the national government, and the county government, the money that they are channeling for these bursaries forwarded to the Ministry of Education so that it can be disbursed to the needy student. I tend to oppose this particular motion. Madam Speaker, thank you for that.
The Honorable Martin Owino, member for Diwa.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I'm so grateful to my friend, Honorable Esther Passaris. She means well. She wants children to go to school free because we have said in our Constitution of free education. That is very, very well understood. The problem is, and that's why I respectfully oppose this motion. The fact is, we say what we don't mean and we mean what we don't say. That's the problem in this country. I think Honorable Kiari got it very well when you said you can even use a microscopic lens to see what the National Education Ministry does in our constituency. Almost nil. If there is, it's delayed full time. Madam Speaker, as we speak now, the only person who knows the vulnerable segment of our population is a member of parliament. The way I did mine, which also involved full public participation, going to each and every polling center and inviting opinion leaders and those who matters in that constituency, and asking them, who do you think we should take? They give you the list themselves. Some even tell you, no, instead of taking this child, take so-and-so's child, because mine is a bit better. There is nothing better you can get more than that. So I don't know what it is in this country that what is working well, we are not even making better. Instead, we come with other issues that dilute what has been working. But it is clear to me, Madam Speaker, you cannot do something the same way, same time, and you expect a different outcome. It doesn't work. If we were to put all these funds together, we as MPs, the national CDF is not a county, it's not a devolved function. I think one member also got it very right. I think it's scary again. This is a decentralized fund. It's not a devolved fund. So once you have decentralized, how come you bring it back to the mother? Maybe ladies can tell us. When a child is born, you cannot take it back to the womb. You kill the child. It was taken from the national kitty of the Ministry of Education because it was not functioning. Madam Speaker, as we speak now, all the infrastructure, I've never seen, even latrines are collapsing. It is CDF. There is no emergency response from the National Education Ministry in all our constituencies, and this is 290 constituencies we are talking about. The best way to decentralize funds is to use our constituencies, and it is the right thing to do. So, Honorable Passaris, even if we are opposing this, I think maybe translate this motion into a bill that will put all these monies flying everywhere into national CDF. Then we will achieve what we want. Because right now we say there's free basic education, there's none. If children are facing what we call revolving doors, they are in school today, they're out tomorrow. Who meets even the fare to take them home and back is member of parliament. Lastly, I want to say the Ministry of Education, sadly enough, is overwhelmed with what we call geopolitics, nepotism, inequitable distribution of resources. That's why there was a genius initiative to have this money be spread across all the 290 constituencies. And that should be perfected, Madam Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I didn't see you coming in. So that should be perfected. We should not be regressing again to what was not working for Kenyans. So I submit that I oppose and respect Honorable Passaris for bringing this motion. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kunipa fursa na mimi niweze kuchangia mswada muhimu sana wa kuhusu mambo ya elimu. Kwanza nimpongeze Mheshimiwa Passaris kwa sababu alifanya hilo akitaka watoto wote wasome waweze kupata elimu ya bure. Ingawa kitu hapa naweza kukosoa ni kwamba ni ule mfumo ambao ameutaka yeye, kwa sababu haya mambo yamejaribiwa katika taifa hili, kuwa na mfuko mmoja katika sehemu moja, na hiyo ndio imesababisha kuzorota kwa taifa zima. Hata sehemu zingine unaanza kusikia kwamba zinasema sisi tuko nyuma, wale wako mbele, kwa sababu ya mfumo wa zile fedha kuwa katika sehemu moja, halafu wanagawanya kwa vile wanavyotaka wao, zinakuwa zinagawanywa kisiasa, zinakuwa zinagawanywa katika mpangilio ambao si wa sawa. Lakini ikiwa pesa zitakwenda mashinani, ni kwamba kila sehemu itaweza kupata nafasi ya kuwapatia mgao huo ufadhili kwa wale watu wanaohusika. Na ni vyema sana ikiwa Mheshimiwa Spika, itabidi unilinde na hawa wanazungumza hapa, ni kwamba zile fedha zikienda mashinani zitasaidia.
Waheshimiwa mlioko karibu na Mheshimiwa Bedzimba, Mheshimiwa Chome na ndugu yangu kutoka Taita, msizungumze na sauti kubwa, mpeni nafasi ndugu yenu na pia changie mjadala huu. Endelea Bwana Bedzimba, Mheshimiwa Bedzimba.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika kwa ulinzi huo, kwa sababu hawa wacha nisiwasemee tena. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, ni kwamba hizi fedha kama zingelikuwa tangu wakati wa kubuniwa kwa taifa hili wangelikwenda vizuri, haya mambo yote shida zisingekuwa. Hata kusingekuwa na sehemu yote inayosema kwamba sisi tumewekwa nyuma, wale wamesonga mbele, ama hapa hakuna barabara, ama hapa hakuna shule. Ni kwa sababu hapa mgao kutoka juu, ukiwekwa juu unashuka chini vibaya sana, unaenda kiubaguzi. Hata ndio sababu saa hizi hata kutoa dokumenti zingine ama stakabadhi zingine kama pasipoti ama lolote zimepelekwa katika sehemu tofauti, zilipokuwa hapa ilikuwa ni uzito. Kwa hivyo ni kwamba hizi fedha ziende chini na mahali pa kwenda ambako kutaweza kusaidia zaidi ni katika hazina za CDF. Ikiwa mjumbe ataweza kupewa hizi fedha, aongezewe na kuwe na taratibu ya kwamba zile shule zilioko katika eneo lake, asijali wale watu kama ni wapiga kura wa wapi, asijali watoto hao wanatoka wapi, au atalipa zile school fees yote pale, na mwingine naye alipe yote kule, na mwingine alipe, kutakuwa shida hii itapungua. Lakini kama tutaweza kuchukua hizi fedha tuzilete tena katika sehemu moja, nina hakika watu wataumia zaidi. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia kuna hazina nyingi za kifedha ambazo zinahusiana na mambo ya ufadhili wa shule ama karo, lakini watu mashinani hawajui watazipata vipi, hawajui wata-apply vipi, hawajui watakaribia vipi. Mahali wanapojua ni pale pale tu karibu kwa mjumbe, kwa mama women rep, hapo karibu na yeye ndio anajua. Kwa hivyo hizi fedha zote zitolewe huku Nairobi. Angalia Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna fedha ambazo katika wizara wanapewa ambazo wanatakaniwa wajenge majengo za shule, lakini hakuna jengo linajengwa kutoka wizara. Jengo ukiangalia hii imejengwa na hazina CDF, ukiangalia hii imejengwa sijui na gafu, ukiangalia hivi ni sisi wenyewe ama NGCDF ndio inaojenga mashule, lakini hakuna wizara. Hata juzi walituahidi kwamba watatupatia madarasa mawili kila mtu, sisi tuongeze tuweke fedha tujenge na wao watatupa. Hakuna hata moja ambao wametoa. Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa hivyo mimi nimesimama hapa kupinga mapendeleo yale ambayo yako, lakini tunataka elimu iwe kwa watoto wote, maskini na matajiri, kwa sababu ni haki ya kila mmoja Mkenya awe atapata elimu. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, nimesimama hapa kusema kwamba fedha zile zipelekwe kwa mjumbe, zipelekwe mashinani ili kusudi watoto wasome. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
Mheshimiwa Bidu Tubi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to contribute to this important motion. Mr. Speaker, I'm not for the idea presented by Mheshimiwa Passaris, with all due respect, because she meant well. Yes, because there's a lot of money is hanging in the country here and there, and she wanted all these monies to be somewhere so that our children should go to school. Well, but the matter here is that we have the national government, yes, the national government where she wants all the monies to go. Already the national government is supposed to give capitation to schools. And all those monies, they are supposed to be, per kid is supposed to be 20-something thousand per kid. But that money has not been reaching exactly what was given out as a capitation to the schools. And during the last rains, El Nino, we had a lot of schools which were swept away. In my constituency up to today, there are areas where children are learning under trees. National government is not coming in, and that is the function of national government. So we cannot burden, again, the same national government. What was given out from national government to NGCDF is seen everywhere that is functioning well. Mr. Speaker, when we came into Parliament last time, and I'm first timer, I agreed with my governor that we should have divide. I will pay for my constituency, he pays for universities, he pays for all others. Up to today, mine is seen on the ground. But up to today, nothing, no payments from the governor is coming to the children in the county. That bursary fund is used in other ways, not for the purpose of students in the county of Isiolo. So we will be more safer when we give all the monies to the members of parliament, going by examples of what has happened already from NGCDF. So we cannot go back again and risk ourselves, giving out to the national government or anybody else. Whatever is collected, I agree with members who have proposed that we take even those ones which are in the governor's accounts to the NGCDF so that members of parliament can be able to manage it. And it has been proven that members of parliament can be able to do that better off than anybody else. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable MP for Turkana Central, followed by Honorable Mohammed Ali, and then followed by the MP for Karachuonyo. Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I stand to thank Honorable Passaris for bringing up this motion, but in the same measure, I want to oppose. Honorable Speaker, we have a failed policy. We have a system that has already failed us. That will be the issue. We may be able to consolidate, amalgamate, but still fail to deliver, as it is happening. Honorable Speaker, I am a beneficiary of the school equipment scheme. the Kenya School Equipment Scheme that used to happen in the 80s. Number two, Honorable Speaker, if it were not for a Rambes, and if it were not for a family friend, whom I will call a father, Honorable Emmanuel Imana, I would not have been here today. And so, Honorable Speaker, it defeats all the odds to say we must consolidate these funds. Already, HELP is not doing well. The new one called Higher Education Fund is also not doing well. Honorable Speaker, capitation is not also doing well. There is the Presidential Secondary Schools Bursary not doing well. There is also the School Equipment Production Unit not doing well. There is also the School Feeding Program that is also not doing well. Where is the problem? We must understand this. And so when we want to say we want to consolidate, why are we not delivering properly in those other systems or in those other funds that are already granted to the Ministry of Education, Honorable Speaker? And therefore, Honorable Speaker, there is the fear of the unknown. And as at now, honorable members in this House, the MPs, are helping their voters or constituency members to go to school because they know where they stay, they know whom they are, and they can easily sympathize with the situation on the ground. And Honorable Speaker, all in all, this is a momentous time where I will still call back Honorable Passaris to reconsider her motion and take it back to government so that government can be able to tell us what has been the problem. And therefore, Honorable Speaker, this is a premature motion. It has to be reconsidered. We must engage with government and tell government that, please, we are not delivering as required. And therefore, we are not ready to surrender even the small bursaries that are delivering the benefits to our people back to the Ministry of Education, Honorable Speaker. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that, yes, we hold government responsible. But on the other side, this government must be able to add more funds to NGCDF. Because as at now, we have some Form 4 students, Honorable Speaker, who have been sent back home. They are still staying at home. And I must say that without a reconsideration of us helping to increase this, then we may not be able to deliver as required. Otherwise, we may not, the dream on free education is not yet there. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Muhammad Ali, but before you take, let me recognize the presence in the gallery and welcome students from Beth Mugo High School, Dagoretti South. You're welcome, the Honorable MP for Dagoretti South. I'm giving you exactly 1 minute to also welcome your own constituents.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to welcome this very great school in our constituency. As you have said, it is named after a very great daughter of our constituency, the Honorable Senator Beth Mugo, who served her term in this parliament and also served a term in Senate and is still remembered because of this great institution that she founded, Beth Mugo Institution. Beth Mugo High School is an example of what NGCDF can do. And as we discuss
wale watoto pale mashinani, lakini ukiangalia NGCDF vile ambavyo tunafanya kazi, vile ambavyo mwananchi yule mama wa kule chini kabisa anaweza kumfikia mbunge ama mbunge anaweza kufika kule mashinani na kuweza kusaidia hawa watoto waweze kupata elimu. Mheshimiwa Spika, ukiangalia kama kwangu katika kaunti ya Mombasa, eneo bunge la Nyali, ni dhahiri ukitembea utajua kweli mgao wa NGCDF unafanya kazi. Ukiangalia pesa ambazo ziko na magavana, na nimeona wabunge wengine wamesema ni kusikizana, labda gavana achukue za chuo kikuu na wabunge wachukue shule za high school na secondary. Lakini utaona ya kwamba utumizi mzuri unaofanyika katika njia bora zaidi na unaokuwa ni mfano, na hii tutamkumbuka nao Rais Mwai Kibaki hayati, pamoja na yule mbunge ambaye aliweza kuleta hii nasaha ya kuhakikisha kwamba pesa imefika mashinani. Kwa hivyo kusema Mheshimiwa Esther Pasari anasema pesa yote yako kwa mfuko moja, itawekwa kwa mfuko moja, itafikia vipi watu? Tulipigana ili iondolewe kwa mfuko moja, iweze kufika mashinani, ndio iweze kupitia kila mmoja. Mheshimiwa Spika, kuna magavana wanakalia pesa, hawawezi toa hizi basari. Labda tuanze kuzingatia kufikia hizi pesa ambazo haziwafikii wananchi, na labda tuanze kufikiria zile ambazo zinafanya kazi kama za wabunge zianze kuongezwa ili tuweze kufikia hawa wananchi kwa ndani kabisa. Mheshimiwa Spika, leo ukienda katika kaunti zozote umuulize yule mama mboga, yule mtu wa bodaboda, mara ya mwisho alikutana na gavana wake ni lini? Hawezi kukuambia. Atakwambia hata ofisi hawezi karibia kwa sababu wanafukuzwa kama umbwa. Lakini mheshimiwa mbunge akiingia katika yale maeneo anafikiwa haraka kwa sababu anaingia mashinani, anaingia chochoro ambazo magavana hawezi enda. Hawa magavana wataingia hizo chochoro wakati wa kura, lakini hawa wabunge wataingia wakati wa kura na wakati watakapotoa ushindi kufika pale mashinani. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Esther Pasari, wazo ni nzuri, lakini si wazo ya kuifikiria katika Kenya ya sasa, si wazo ya kuifikiria katika Afrika ya sasa, ni wazo ya kuifikiria wakati ambapo nchi hii ufisadi utapigwa vita ile vile inavyotakikana. Siku ambao tutamaliza ufisadi ndio siku ambao labda utaleta wazo kama hilo, kwa sababu bila ufisadi pesa itafika. Lakini ukisema tuweke kwa mfuko mmoja, tumepatia mtu mmoja nguvu ya kusema ni nani atapata. Leo niko kwa serikali, kesho naweza kuwa upinzani. Nikiwa upinzani niende kuomba pesa ya watoto wangu kule Nyali, wataniangalia na jicho la upinzani. Kama hanipendi ataniangalia na jicho ambalo la kuonesha mimi sina haja na wewe, wewe kajipange. Kwa hivyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi nataka kusema wazo lake ni nzuri, si wazo ya karne hii, ni wazo ambayo itafanyika katika siku za usoni, wakati ambapo tutakomboa nchi hii katika minyororo ya ufisadi na kuhakikisha kila pesa inaweza kufikia mwananchi. Shukrani sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
MP Mheshimiwa Karachuonyo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I know I have a very short time remaining. I'll just be very quick. Mr. Speaker, we have about 5 schemes giving bursary as we speak. And the money given to them, added together, pooled together, Mr. Speaker, cannot be enough to provide free education. Some money will have to be added. Mr. Speaker, I ask that we look at how the bursary has been performing. The money given to NGCDF has performed so well. And my witnesses are the students themselves, plus their parents. Others I don't want to say much about. In fact, if you ask somebody what PSSB means, he will say he doesn't know. In fact, he will ask you to explain what it is. And that signifies that there is no impact of that money. So why do we want to migrate from where the impact is to where there is no impact? Mr. Speaker, let me just add that the national government decentralized bursary from their kitty to the constituencies. There were good reasons for doing that. And these reasons have been seen in results. If we say that the bursaries to go back to the national government, to the ministry, does it mean that we are asking for centralization again? If that's the case, then one would say, how about county government? Whatever is being given to them should also be centralized back to the national government, which actually will be defeating all the purposes the 2010 Constitution is for. Mr. Speaker, I'm asking that we pull together. I agree with that. We give free education. I agree with that. But then we use NGCDF to carry out the exercise of giving the bursary to the children, to the students. If we do that, we will be putting money where the problem is. The problem is not in the ministry. The problem is on the ground at the constituency level. The parents can easily contact the member of parliament if they are in a problem. The schools can easily contact the member of parliament when they have a problem. There is no way they will be able to contact the PS of the ministry concerned directly, or even the minister. It is not easy. So decentralization that was being done by giving bursary to the MPs has made bursary an household name everywhere in Kenya. I support the free education, but the method of how to get this work is where I differ. And I say we must use NGCDF at the constituency level. Mr. Speaker, thanks so much.
The Honorable MP for Moiben, you have like 20 seconds, but you could start taking the bite and you conclude it in the next.
Mr. Speaker, I want to use a study which was done in Trans Nzoia by Nyakundi and Onsomo 2023 on the impact of constituency bursary in Trans Nzoia County. Mr. Speaker, bursary, the reason why bursary was apportioned to different entities was not a mistake. What we should be doing is increasing the amount of money. Otherwise, we cannot consolidate everything to the Ministry of Education because, Mr. Speaker, even the funding, even the university funding model is having issues because, it's not doing what's supposed to be doing exactly. It still has challenges, and that's why the president had to get a working committee to relook at it. So we can't risk it by putting our bursaries in one basket. It's dangerous, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Do you wish to still have your time, the balance of the time, on another allotted date, or you have already contributed fully? Okay, you do have your time, additional time in the next allotted date for the same motion. In the meantime, honorable members, please. Honorable members, the time being 1 o'clock or 1 p.m., the House stands adjourned until Wednesday, the 25th of September, 2024 at 2:30 p.m.
Manchana